Their Nongshim Red Force. Nongshim is the brand that makes that cool ramen. It's in fact probably the most famous ramen in all of Korea, and it's infected the rest of the world as well. I was in like a tiny little convenience store, general store in the mountains of Australia, and they had Shin Ramen. They did. You can't escape it. It's everywhere, and it's delicious. And now, Team Dynamics is Nongshim Red Force for a reason. The power of the red spicy ramen is coming. And they looked pretty good. In fact, I think that they would, a lot of people would say that they overperformed in the Kesper Cup, so looking forward to what they can do as they move further up. Dokdam is still just going from strength to strength. And now I need to double check to make sure I'm getting the rosters correct. Yes, I am. Nailed it. And they have Peanut, the last remaining tiger that we have here in Korea. Fun fact, tigers also went extinct in Korea a few years ago. Quite a few years ago. But the Rox Tigers are also going extinct as well. Peanut, the last one remaining, wasn't even on the original Rox Tigers. What he can do back in Korea now that he's not playing for LGD any longer. DRX went boom. We'll have to see what they're going to be able to put together. But that team just not looking the same. And we have a new team. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot. Breon exist in the LCK now. They were High Fresh Breon, they were Breon Blade, but now they're Fredit Breon, and their icon is Bro. Like, that's the acronym that they went with. So, I mean, if anything's going to get your fans, just call yourself Bro. Works pretty well, I reckon. We've changed up the entire championship format for the playoffs here in the LCK. We now have 6 teams that are going to be fighting for championship points at the end of the year. And in fact, our number 1 team is going to have to go through a little bit more than just waiting at the top of a gauntlet. And I can hear you, Gen G fans. No longer will you be waiting to see your team get 3-0'd in the final. This time around, you get to watch them do it much earlier. No, that's not true. This time, they're going to have a lot more practice in the playoffs before they get to that really soul-crushing, not soul-crushing, that really intense, high-pressure situation. Just between you and me, me and the Gen G social media team do have a fair bit of banter here and there, and that was definitely a funny joke, not a dig at your favorite team. Please do not lynch me. Now, we're going to actually get into the part of the show that you've been looking forward to. Enough of Max just waffling and rambling. Let's introduce to you our new commentators. And I'm going to start with chronicler Maurits. I can't pronounce his name whatsoever. I'm not even going to try. Just straight up not going to try. Dutch names are too hard. And he's going to be able to tell you exactly what his name is. So without further ado, let's roll some cool shit and get to the chronicler. Welcome, chronicler, to the LCK. You're not quite here yet. You're in fact still in the middle of nowhere, not in Korea, the place where things are relevant. How's things? How's been your experience so far trying to get to Korea first?
Ups and downs, I'd say. I think especially right now, it's a little bit harder to get where you want to be anywhere in the world. And that includes Korea, unfortunately, because it is quite a trip that we're going to be taking from the middle of nowhere, as you said so secondly, because who cares about the Netherlands, right?
Well, I mean, I came from Australia, so it was more of a dig on myself to join you. I understand coming from the middle of nowhere, as most of the world assumes.
But it's been good. Everyone has been super helpful. It's just like the process just takes a long time, because obviously I would have much preferred to be there for the start of the season. Yeah, but that's okay. You know, we'll get there when we get there. And right now things are looking peachy, that we at least have a good time schedule that is going to be adhered to for getting there. So I'll take that as a win.
Hell yeah. I mean, it took me until March to get there. I think Achilles was about to die when I turned up in Korea for the first time. So I reckon you're absolutely winning, and we're really happy to have you. How about you do a bit of self-introduction, and let's start with pronouncing your name correctly so that everyone understands why I can't.
Yeah, so if you want to say it completely correctly, you'd say Maurits Meeuwsen, which I don't think for non-Dutch people is great. I can see you look at me like, why is that your name? And it's
tough.
Like in international settings, I usually just go by Mau, because everyone can pronounce that, which leads to a lot of self-explanatory jokes, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I have been, a caster full-time for the last 2 years.
Oh, nice. So, what have you been doing? I know you did some EU Masters stuff. Have you been casting in English predominantly, or which language do you? I know you, you speak a few languages.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't think any other language is good enough to speak in, but I also cast in Dutch, so I really like that as well. But it's
is that just the accent? You just cast in a Dutch accent? Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
I like to think English. That I cast in Australian and English. So I'm as bilingual as you are, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that works, right? You know, there's a lot of depth there. But no, I cast in Dutch for the Dutch and Belgium ERL, and previously just any Dutch gig I could get my hand on, especially when I was starting out. And English I've done. Because I lived in London for a year, right? So I've done a lot of English stuff, and then outside of that, it's just been online cups and tournaments, whatever I could find, really.
Yeah, and there's quite a few of those over in Europe as well, right? Like, I like to think that Europe's probably the best region to be in when it comes to actually being an up-and-coming commentator, because a lot of people have found that, you know, being a newcaster in the scene is quite difficult these days.
Yeah, it is very rough. I think that... in the Dutch scene has become a lot better. I think English scene, the problem is also that if you look at where commentators come from, it's like UK, Ireland, and then there's so many that come from that region that region specifically is fairly saturated. But I think if you want to cast in your native language, there's no better place to be than Europe, because all the ERLs get a lot of support from Riot, right? They have built-in legitimacy, so it's a really good way to hone your craft.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And you killed it in the audition, by the way. And I want to ask you that question, actually. I'm just going to go off topic just for 1 second. Do you think Damwon winning the World Championship makes Korea the best region in the world? Oh, yeah,
I do.
You do?
I think there's a lot of argument to be made for, you know, saying that Damwon was a little bit of a, superhero mutant team, which I think is fair, fair to say. But simultaneously, I think that there are teams like Gen.G and DRX who, both of which would have gone to at least semis, I personally believe. Because Gen.G met the anti-classic Korea team in G2, and Gen.G is good, but they're like very stereotypical, a fairly slow Korean team, right? Like, they're really good, but they're not very diverse. And DRX met Damwon, which... Yeah, we all know how that one goes.
I
don't know how I feel about that one. So I think that if you had different brackets, it would have... Damwon would have won, indubitably. But I think, as a whole, it could have looked very different. Do I think that there's still a gap between Damwon and the rest? Yeah, but I think that people... I don't think the gap between China and Korea is big enough. But like right now, yeah, we're definitely the best region in the world.
Hell yeah. I actually think that because, you know, the third seed from China made it all the way to the final, does say something about breadth in the LPL, but a region should be judged by their best.
Or inconsistency.
Hey, there we go. I mean, we can't really talk about inconsistency because DRX made it to Worlds, and they were the kings of not being consistent. But we'll have to see what they're going to do. You know, a team made around Pyoshik, who actually was playing very well towards the end of 2020. I don't know whether I have necessarily high hopes. I want to know about some other stuff that you've been up to. What are your hobbies outside of playing video games, which I assume you also do?
I think that I spend most of my time, especially right now, prepping, right, and like watching leagues. So that's just the full-time job. Outside of that, play the usual, right, like single player games. I like Nintendo games a lot. Love board games. I used to do boxing as a sport, which right now is very hard. That's to say,
it's like not a very pandemic-friendly activity.
It is not, no. not even remotely. I really like hiking, and going back to Korea is going to be way better for that, because hiking in the Netherlands, like we're the flattest country in the world, right? There's nothing. There's no mountains. Everything is just like you walk from A to B, and there's just no difference in height, which for me takes away a lot of the fun. I like at the end of a hike looking and like, okay, this was a mountain and I climbed it, and that was great.
And there's a view, and things have changed.
Yeah, and I've conquered this mountain, and now I can walk down again, instead of I walked from flat point A to flat point B, which is what it boils down to in the Netherlands.
Yeah, Korea's definitely good for that one, as you know, as you've been here before. You were here for university for, what was it, a year or something like that?
Half a year, yeah. I did a semester at Yonsei during my undergraduate law degree, which was really fun. Yeah, had a great time.
We actually
I'm very
live
happy
pretty
to be
close to Yonsei University, so I've been there. That's super dope. All right,
it's really pretty.
And there's also great food around the area. Plus, I was going to talk about the mountainous aspect. You've probably been here, but there's just like you can catch a train to go hiking, and you're there in 10 minutes from the middle of the city.
Yeah, at Yonsei, I didn't even. There was you just literally walk off campus onto a mountain, and it wasn't a long hike, but it was still very nice, right? Like you can just walk straight, and then you walk up, and then like in 45 minutes you're at the top, and then you're like, this was really nice, I had a break. Took my lunch break, made good use of it, and now I can go back to class.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, I'm really into music, movies, general pop culture. Love reading as well, which is something that I spend a lot of time on. And yeah, I think that's it. So so it's gaming, reading, hiking, all very cool activities.
Yeah, it kind of does read a little bit like a
world.
Tinder profile, I'm not going to lie to you. But that's okay, because a lot of people are honest when they're on there. It's just that, these are just the things that you want to put out there about yourself. That was a weird thing to say, and I apologize.
That's fine.
I am very, very glad that you actually bring some pop culture knowledge, because we've been dealing with Valdez for a long time, and he knows jack shit about anything.
I know.
It's embarrassing. So when I bring up, Dragon Ball Z, Ninja Turtles, like all of this stuff that Brendan just has no idea about. He's like, I swear he's just like never watched a movie or a TV show. I don't know. That's it's very frustrating. So hopefully at least you've got the classics under your belt, and we can have real discussions about stuff,
no, I mean, people think that I'm coming to the LCK to talk about League of Legends, but little do they know my grand plan is just to talk about nothing for a couple hours a day. That's the real dream.
And that's why you got hired, because you understood what we actually wanted. You mentioned that you like watching movies and reading books and stuff like that. Can you give us some examples? Because that's pretty broad topics.
When it comes to movies, it's hard. I have a very broad taste in both movies and what do you call it? Movies and music as well. Where my music taste range from Carly Rae Jepsen, which is the sweetest of bubblegum pop, really good. If you this is you're gonna hear a lot about this. But yes, Carly Rae Jepsen is amazing. Please check out Emotion. No. I went to a show.
Damn.
I went. I mean, she was at a festival I was at, but it was really, really, really good. Sometimes you just wanna forget about life and bounce to Call Me Maybe, and that's okay.
Damn right, I love that song. And unironically, absolutely. But
yeah,
no.
I've
never heard anyone say that they're a fan. You're
gonna get either sick of that real quick, or you're gonna join in the fun.
I'm into it. I'm absolutely into it. I mean, I was the world's biggest Savage Garden fan, so I'm there with you with a bit of the poppy pop.
Yeah, the poppy pop is good.
12, I think.
That's fine.
Still love them,
Yeah. You gotta appreciate what you gotta appreciate, and
damn right, dude.
Like, yeah. I think for movies, I've loved Blade Runner 2017. I love 2049, the one that came out in 2017. I was thrown off because of Cyberpunk.
Yeah. We actually watched that as a casting team
really?
when it came out over at Seth's place, Achilles' place. And I remember we watched it and realized that we could have either watched it without actually having the screen on, because the audio was so beautiful and the way that they used sound was amazing, but you can also watch it muted and it's amazing because all the visuals are beautiful. I felt like that movie was a work of art, although not necessarily something we should have saved this for the actual LCK broadcast, not this interview.
Yeah, we can talk about this more in depth later. But I'm a really big Villeneuve fan in general. I was really looking forward to June as well. as one of like the big sci-fi classics.
Yeah.
And then it got delayed. So sci-fi, fantasy also comes back in what I read, but I also love reading classics. So English literature, Russian literature, like the more heavy-handed stuff, because I don't get that anywhere else.
I've got 2 more questions.
Okay.
The first one is, can you answer the second question in a Dutch accent the entire time? I don't want to hear any of this English accent stuff. It's far too nice.
It's no problem.
And, I want the weird.
Okay.
Can you tell us about your 2 favorite board games and the ones that I need to do my research on so that we can play when you arrive?
So I think my 2 favorite board games would be Aeon's End is a really good one. It's a cooperative deck builder, and I personally really like it. It's actually designed by a ex-StarCraft 2 pro, and I used to, really love StarCraft 2. That was what got me into esports. And it's basically World of Warcraft, but a deck builder and then a board game. So it's amazing. You're gonna love it. It's really, really good. And then secondly, recently, this is really hard not to break. This is great.
I feel like you're struggling to hold it. You're
no, it's fine.
It's just the professionalism is coming in.
And then secondly, I've really been liking Imperial Settlers. It's more of an engine building game where you're each your own empire. So you have, the Japanese or the Romans or the Egyptians. And then you take those and you draw a bunch of cards, and then you start, you have actions and resources, and then you try to build the best little empire. It's really fun, and that's one that you play against other people. And it gets really, really fun, really in-depth, really quickly.
Well, I'm very excited to play it.
Satisfactory answer?
Yeah, absolutely satisfactory. Okay. I just love the Dutch accent, man. Like, it can go down with Danish. It's like we were having a conversation about this the other night, and I don't remember who linked the Danish accent video, but it's brilliant. And I went on like this weird YouTube vortex just about the Danish accent and the Dutch accent, like one after the other. It's just my favorite thing ever. It's just such a good one. Before we let you go, Moritz, one more thing. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the LCK fans, the new family that you're going to be moving into in a couple of weeks' time?
I'm going to assume that most of you have no clue about me, and that's okay, right? That's completely fine. We're going in rather cold in that regard, but I have loved and watched the LCK for many years, and to be able to work on it is an incredible honor. So I'm going to do my very best to share the love that I have for this broadcast and these teams and these players with you guys, and I'm certain we're going to be just fine.
Hell yeah, brother. I am too. Very excited to have you on the team. So thank you so much for coming on the Pogstate, Moritz, for the first time. And hopefully we can get you back on the show many, many more times in the future as well. And welcome to the LCK. And let's just make sure we can get you on a plane as soon as possible.
It's been a warm welcome. I'm really looking forward to it as well. It's going to be amazing.
Hell yeah, brother. We'll see you soon. Thanks very much, Chronicler. And now, our next LCK commentator off the rack. He is Buddha Jigge lover by day, esports caster by night. Let's give it up for Woo! Welcome, Wolf, to not only the Pogstate, but the LCK in general. I'm not going to lie to anyone. You and I have known each other for, upwards of 4 years now, and have been hanging out almost every single day since then. So, not going to lie, it's going to be very difficult for me to remember what the right questions to ask are, because I just know everything inherently. But I guess we'll start by saying, how's living in Korea for so long, and how's life outside of esports?
I've been in Korea for almost 10 years now. I moved here in 2011, and it's been my home for my entire adult life. So I really love living here. It's an awesome place to be, and I know you've also got to experience that for several years now. So you know how awesome it is to be here. And everybody who gets to work on Korean esports and the LCK relocates to Korea. So there's a pretty big reason why most people don't leave, right? It's because this place is pretty awesome to live in. Living in Korea is extremely comfortable. It's very, very safe. It's very convenient. There's just a ton around the city in Seoul to do, and it's really easy to eat at any point of the day or the night. Tons of cafes, convenience stores. People are really friendly. And since I've lived here for so long, I've learned the language, so that makes living here super easy for me. And yeah, I mean, recently it's been a little bit tougher with conditions around the world, right? But I still think being in Korea, out of any of the places you could be in the world right now, is definitely a top tier place.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's like, it's still crap, right? But it's crap for everyone, no matter where you are. And I think Korea is doing a pretty good job. And that's great. You know, I'm really glad that I'm here, and I had you when I arrived as well. I remember sitting down for a beer outside a convenience store and you saying, "Don't worry, Max, we'll be able to get you a phone. Everything's going to be okay." And that's exactly what I needed. And I think it took me like a week to decide to like call my parents and say, yeah, no, I think the 2-year deal's off. I just may never leave. And having to have that difficult conversation. But let's introduce you, I guess, to all of the LCK fans who may not necessarily know your breadth of experience in esports. How would you introduce yourself to an LCK fan that may not necessarily know who the heck you are, which I think is weird, but what if they didn't, you know?
I think the best way to describe me is that I'm a guy who's been in Korea for a really long time, commentating so many different Korean esports. When I first moved here, I was working on the GSL, which I'm sure you guys have heard of, Tasis and Artosis, work on that still to this day. And then I moved into doing a tournament called Pro League, which in a lot of ways kind of feels like a spiritual precursor to the LCK, with a lot of the teams that were in that league, SK Telecom and T1, or SK Telecom and KT, excuse me,
and Jin Air,
Jin Air, right? Still in that league, but that's where like the term the telecom war comes from, right? Is Pro League and that big rivalry there between those two teams that then became a rivalry in League of Legends as well. I commentated Heroes of the Storm after doing StarCraft 2, and then I moved into working on Apex, which was the premier Overwatch tournament out here. I did that with you actually.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and we worked on that together, and then I most recently worked on the Overwatch League, so I actually left Korea for the first time in my career to work on the Overwatch League very briefly, and now I'm back here and I'm working on the LCK. But I guess the way to describe my casting style and what I've done for working in Korean esports for so long is really just focusing on player history, player backgrounds, and telling stories, because I think that's one of the most exciting parts of Korean esports. I think for a lot of people, they get kind of wrapped up in the, okay, Koreans are the best, let's do high level analysis only, like this is the elite region of best players. But also I think we have some of the best stories, if not the best stories, so I like to tell that as well.
Yeah, I think legacies is something that we sort of desperately need to highlight, because there's so many and so many like we have Faker in the league. Obviously, you know, legacy is going to be one of the biggest storylines, but there are so many other players that are not only, you know, returning and they've got cool stories from elsewhere, but also just here in Korea and new and developing stuff. I mean, I completely agree. I think that like being able to add like not necessarily game and team narrative for the year, but like player narrative over, you know, the entirety of the esport, I think is really important. So I really appreciate that sort of approach, but also pretty good at covering the game as well. And you've done it for a few years now, so I appreciate that also. I guess what we also need to go into, Wolf, is what we're going to bring to the LCK broadcast outside of League of Legends entirely, because this is really important. I know that you're also a huge Nintendo fan. You've got a Jin Air Green Wings sign behind you, which is very important for being able to meme. You're also a little bit famous here in Korea. Do you want to explain your extracurricular activities?
Sure. The best way to... How do I explain this to people? It's actually funny to explain this to people outside of Korea, because at the TLDR, it all boils down to, I posted a lot of pictures and a lot of memes about me eating a Korean dish out here called budae-jjigae, which is most loosely translated to army stew. And then because I made so many memes about it, made so many funny posts, and then eventually started a YouTube channel, I kind of got famous for loving budae-jjigae and being a foreigner out here who loves budae-jjigae. So then I got on some popular TV shows, and I've done a lot of like big interviews about just my love of budae-jjigae. So I've gotten to be quite known for that out here, and it's kind of funny to explain that to people, because like, why aren't you an esports commentator? And then some people ask me like, well, you're really popular. Why are you still doing esports? Like, shouldn't you just be a TV star or something? And first of all, I don't think my Korean is perfect enough for television. Or, you know, people ask me, like, do you commentate in Korean? Like, my family asks me that all the time still. I'm like, no, I don't do that. Like, I'm fluent, but I'm not that perfect at Korean. But yeah, I mean, I love doing esports still, so this kind of started as like a hobby for me to post like meme pictures and try to improve my Korean, and it just kind of kept growing, and it's been like a really fun side hobby for me. And I love Budae-jjigae, it's not a lie. I mean, you know how much I love it. I talk about it.
I know, I've had it with you.
Yeah.
I understand. There is a lot of passion there. I do have one question about it though. If you've got your esports life over here and you've got your Budae-jjigae life over here, and we were to make an analogy based on, like, you know, Batman and Bruce Wayne, for example, Superman and Clark Kent, whichever one you prefer, which one's Batman and which one's Bruce Wayne?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question. I think if we boil it down, no Budae-jjigae pun intended, but I think the Batman is esports and the Bruce Wayne is Budae-jjigae and the like Korean D-list celebrity life, you know.
I sort of like, that's what I would have assumed. You know, because like eating Budae-jjigae and being like a just chatting streamer, I guess, when you're like doing shows like that, you know, like the mukbang type style thing, I feel like that's way more socially acceptable. And then like you get home and you put your suit on, which is basically your suit, like your super suit or your casting suit, and then you go and do what your heart really wants to do, which is yell about video games. Oh, it's beautiful. I actually feel like now you're just Batman in my brain, and that only makes things better.
I need to get honest, like a mask for casting as well. You guys all know it's me. It's like it's a secret.
I mean, you could just wear a face mask and just, it seems like you're just being extra careful about COVID in your own house, which is completely unnecessary, guys. You probably don't need to if you're alone in your house, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I think better safe than sorry.
Sure.
I don't know why I needed to say that. Wear a mask if you want to. Totally fine. But yeah, no, I think it's really cool that there's sort of like multiple facets to the wolf that we may get here in the LCK, and I am selfishly am really excited to be able to utilize it here on the Pog State, things like that. Already you've been helping like translate some of the LCK memes and things like that. What has been some of your favorite things that you've heard from sort of the Korean community as you moved into League of Legends casting?
The Korean community is very I don't want to say strict, but they're very critical of the players all the time. But also, when a player does really well, they really hype it up. So I feel like the Western audience is often also critical, but they draw like broad sweeping generalizations, I think, whereas the Korean community, in my experience, focuses on high highs and low lows. So sometimes you get like the most extreme of memes because of it. And Yukal recently, you know, was the big meme of the broadcast we did yesterday.
Yeah, the getting his memory back.
Yeah,
thing.
Getting his memory back because he's playing with another jungler that doesn't know how to smite in blank, which I thought was really funny. And like, I love that the Korean community does just like kind of latch on to the legacy memes as well, and they bring old memes back from years previous. So I'm always gonna have my ear to the ground on what the Koreans are saying and try to bring that into the broadcast.
Actually, I really love that it's all nostalgia based. Like all of the stuff that comes from the Korean community that they really latch onto. It's all like, you know, we've got the 612 meme for blank as well, but like understanding that Scorm like missed every smite, things like that, you know, like the Gangplank ulti stealing it with 2 health and all that sort of garbage. Like the fact that the Korean fans are all so in tune, and then when one person remembers this thing, everyone's like, oh yes, I remember that time, it was so good. And I think that can be dangerous, because I think you're right. You know, there's a lot of passion, and sometimes when that goes the other direction, it can get a little bit frightening. Thankfully, T1 are doing very, very well at the start of this season, so we're not seeing too much of the negative side of it right now. Plus, Faker played, you know, may not have won, but they don't beat the world champion, and you're upset about it, then you're a bit silly, in my personal opinion. And I think that T1 have been playing very, very well. And I guess the last question is, what's your opinion on the LCK at the moment? Who do you have your eye on, and who would you say would be like a dark horse that you'd give in the LCK?
I think the top three is pretty clearly defined now that we've had all the teams play as Damwon, Kia, and T1 and Genji at the moment. And, you know, spoilers, we'll see what the results are when this comes out, but, you know, Nongshim is playing against Damwon Kia tonight, so maybe we'll see some shifts around that if maybe there's an upset. I don't think there will be. Dark horse, though, for me, has definitely been Live Sandbox. I've been kind of looking at this team, thinking that Krakow is insanely good. They're a pretty strong team. They play well around the macro game. Their drafts always have a really clear theme. And also, I want to say, I feel like DRX has been pleasantly surprising so far.
Weirdly surprising, right?
Yeah.
It's like they shouldn't be able to make stuff work, and they make some stupid decisions through entire games, and then they're fine. I don't understand.
Yeah, their late game
I
decision
agree.
making is so good, which is crazy for a team that's not as experienced as some of the other teams that they're playing up against. So to make really good decisions under high pressure situations means that once they get the early game down and once they get down some of the nerve issues that they seem to have to early and mid game, if they can make the perfect right decision as quickly as they are right now in the late game every time, this team suddenly becomes really terrifying.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. I hadn't actually really thought about it. I was busy trying my best not to get excited about KT, and that's sort of been my experience over the last few days. And, you know, when you're trying not to do something, it's like blinking. When you're thinking about blinking, all you do is blink. And I did it, and now I'm just blinking all the time. What would you say your top three loves would be? Like, I guess franchises in any sort of pop culture genre.
I mean, I guess one is like restaurants and food and stuff like that, which is tougher to reference outside of Korea, unfortunately. But, you know, you and I talk about all the restaurants we go to all the time, what we like, and where they are, and, you know, what we should be trying, and et cetera, et cetera. Which, you know, could be fun for the global viewers to know at least like what we like to eat out here. That's the obvious one, obviously, with my budae love and all that. I'd say video games, and especially retro games. I don't know how well you'll be able to see my collection of video games.
I'm actually
behind me.
surprised you didn't lead with Fire Emblem. I thought you were going to lead with Fire Emblem, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I love Fire Emblem. I love Monster Hunter. There's a lot of series out there that I really like. I mean, I'm a huge F-Zero fan, which I think to the younger generation probably doesn't mean anything, but...
That's
just...
Captain Falcon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that a fighting game?
I love F-Zero, Fire Emblem, and Star Fox. Those are my favorite game series ever, and, you know, you can see some of that back there. I love Smash Bros. As well. I'm a huge Smash Bros. Guy. So gaming outside of, you know, esports, just in terms of like playing video games, especially older retro games, I love that. And I don't know, I like really dark TV shows, you know, like Breaking Bad and The Wire, and, and any show that's gonna make you think about things and maybe make you feel a little bit depressed after you watch it, you know. So I like that kind of TV drama.
Moritz and I actually had a conversation about this as well. He's a Carly Rae Jepsen fan, but also likes watching, you know, dark drama television, which I think is a great demonstration of light and shade. And I think you're right there as well, because another thing I'm gonna completely hijack once again and explain a thing about Wolf that I think is wonderful. Another thing that he loves to do is go through any esports opening ever.
Oh yeah, true.
And he just watches esports openings one after the other and explains why this year of esports in this specific game is relevant. And he'll pause it 7 times throughout the video. Doesn't matter which game it is. Could be StarCraft, could be Overwatch, could be League of Legends, could be Heroes of the Storm, could be Budae. I don't know. They don't have an esport yet, but maybe they will in the future. And Wolf will tell you exactly why these specific moments are important.
I love esports openings so much. I mean,
he does. He's a big fan.
I have watched probably every OSL opening, every LCK opening, every StarCraft 2 opening, even the old GOM TV like GSL openings that were really not that good. Like, I could tell you a lot about all of them. I am obsessed with that.
I feel like I'm just over at your house again, and now like I need to focus back on being on the Pog State. So thank you so much, Wolf, for coming on the show. I hope you're on many, many more in the future, and I'm looking forward to having a Budae Day with you on the Pog State, so we can show exactly what it's about and just enjoy some spam, and people at home can do it vicariously through us as well.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. You can catch the full-length episode in audio version. That should be linked somewhere below. If you want more information on everything Pog State, make sure you head over to the Twitter. We're going to be utilizing it as often as we possibly can to get everything out to you guys. And also, if you could give us a subscribe, ring the notification bell if you're on YouTube, leave us a review if you're listening to the audio version, or do anything that you can. We want to try and get some sponsorships and make some really, really cool stuff for you. So if you want to do that, that would absolutely be fantastic. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to LCK 2021. I'm Atlas, I'm joined by Wolf once again, and I really hope you enjoyed the first episode of Season 2 of the Pog State. So cool that we managed to get it out. Wolf, how you doing, man? I feel like we could extend the interview process, at the beginning, but maybe we should concentrate on the LCK.
Well, I'm just glad everybody got to find out how much I love esports openings. I like our new one too that we have. Very, very cool. Very much focused on the new era of LCK and our rebrand that we have here. New logo and all of that. And it's been a great first week of LCK, I have to say. Yeah. It was my first LCK weekend, the esports weekend, Monday, Tuesday. And I found myself by the end of Tuesday night feeling like I'm ready to cast some more LCK,
Hell yeah, brother. I completely agree. Let's have a look at how things went in that first week as we bring up the standings. Gen G, way out in front. You may be talking about strength of schedule, things like that, but back-to-back 2-0s are just real good no matter where you're sitting. And they managed to take down KT as well, who have looked very, very strong behind a reinvigorated UCal. Who do you have your eyes on, though, having a look down the standings, Will?
I mean, I really think everybody should be looking at DRX right now. Will they make it to the west side, as the Korean commentators like to call it, and make it into top 5 this week? They've got some matches that are definitely winnable for them coming up, and there's certainly a team that's surprising everyone a lot right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I personally didn't necessarily give them very much hope. At the beginning, you may have seen that in the Pog State where I just said that they went boom, but I think that, Quad now Solka looks really strong in the mid lane. I think Kyoshik's been able to rally the troops quite effectively. And like you say, they don't exactly have the toughest matches here today, and we're going to be seeing them in our second one. So Nongshim Red Force and Live Sandbox, two teams that have been struggling a little bit at the beginning of the LCK. And speaking of which, we are going to have Live Sandbox versus Afrika as our first match. So Afrika might be walking away from their first 3 matches looking real good before they head into the furnace that is Darm1 Gaming. These are the Pog standings, though, and Darm1 definitely well represented in Showmaker and Khan, both at 200 points, but Chovy as exactly where he belongs, sitting at 300 points right out front.
Yeah, we've got quite a big representation of mid laners in our Pogs right now, and domination we're seeing out of Chovy and Showmaker is expected, but UCal as well has been playing fantastically for KT Rolster. Definitely one of the big zoom-ins, I think, for everybody at home to look out for. Take a look at our top picks and bans, though, Alice. This has been really interesting. As Akali is still, obviously, very, very heavily banned. Hasn't actually been played in the games that she was left open in. But look at the win rate for Talia. Her ban rate actually reflects how successful she's been, and that's actually pretty rare to see a champion that's banned that much, because usually when it's left open it ends up going 50-50, but she is 5-0 right now in the LCK.
Yeah, and almost 100% first picked as well, so it's not even necessarily that, you know, she gets through a draft here and there. She is always prioritized by every single team here in the LCK, and as you can see, stats don't lie. 100% pick ban rate, 100% win rate. Talia is just pretty busted. We also just have a lot of Talia players in the jungle as well that just really like playing her. So when they get their hands on her, obviously good things are going to happen. Kai'Sa as well. I mean, we weren't super hot on Kai'Sa at the very beginning, but she's been, you know, winning more than she's been losing, things like that. I think Aphelios, though, has been a bit of a surprise jumping up in priority.
Yeah, he's definitely made a big return, and we're seeing him paired with a lot of different supports right now, and it's hard to say which one's going to be the best. Thresh is obviously the one that you normally see, but has been paired with even Rel as of late.
Yeah, I think Rel's actually a really interesting one that we'll probably discuss during the draft. But let's get into our first match, Liv Sandbox versus the Afrika Freaks. Desperate for their first win, yes. Liv Sandbox haven't necessarily had the greatest of times, but Afrika, you know, slow and steady. They haven't been against the toughest opposition, but they have been able to pick up some wins, and I just like watching Bang succeed. And Bang's actually been playing really, really well in their first couple of games.
Yeah, Leo is back to play tonight as well. He'll be on the starting roster playing against Bang, who's his former teammate. You know, Bang was actually his scholar, or the teacher, I guess you could say. The apprentice. Leo was the apprentice to Bang the Master, as he was the sub on SK Telecom T1 at that time. So yeah, a lot of issues with both these teams in the late game, unfortunately. And for Liv Sandbox, as you mentioned, this is a must-win match. To start off 0-3 in the season is really going to deplete your chances of making those playoffs. And against Afrika too was, again, you know, not one of the stronger teams in the LCK. That's where you want to hit. But we got to talk about this. This is actually insane, the stats that Afrika's putting out. Again, grain of salt in that they have had some weaker opponents at first, but they have never lost first turret. They've never lost a Herald. They have 100% on first turret and Herald percentage. But their game time is the highest in the LCK. So you can see they get early advantages. 2,377 gold advantage on average at 15 minutes. But they have the longest game time. So getting early advantages, but not able to push them into victories early on, and have almost let many of their games slip away throughout their start here in the LCK. So for Afrika, I think it's about tightening up that mid to late game, finishing off those games that you've got such an early lead in.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is a perfect demonstration of a team that may not necessarily have themselves all together just yet, because you see those big game times paired with gigantic leads in the early game, and you're not exactly going to be feeling super crash hot about it. And I think we saw that represented in their match against DRX, which was super back and forth. Felt like Afrika should have won, but they just weren't able to, right? So their early stats were very strong, and then DRX stole a couple of victories away from them. But let's have a look at Liv Sandbox first. Summit, Croco, Fate, Leo, and Effort. Of course, a very T1 bottom lane here, as Bang is going to be going up against Effort that he laned with for a little while. Of course, Effort spent most of his time alongside Teddy, but Bang and Effort certainly did put some time in together around 2018. And this will be your Afrika roster: Keen, Dread, Fly, Bang, and Lehens. Lehens, the Seraphine monster on the bottom side of the map, has been really turning some heads.
And I think that's part of why Afrika has had so many early leads, because he and Bang have dominated the laning phase when he is on that champion. Very aggressive in lane, have a ton of sustain with Seraphine's shields. She's just very oppressive in general, right? So getting early leads has often led to fast turret plates, fast roaming. And here is our key player matchup: Croco and Dread. You know, me, you, Chronicler, Valdez. We've all been talking about how this is kind of the obvious matchup to look at going into this, even though you think about the bot lane, you think about the history of the SK Telecom trio that's going to be down there with this starting lineup. But I think jungle control here is going to be extremely critical, and Croco has had the more successful track record so far overall. Dread, I think, is going to have to catch up a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. I think one of the most interesting stats that we're highlighting here is the counter jungle percent. Croco doesn't really like going into the opposition jungle, whereas Dread seems like he lives there. So this is going to be a conflict of styles, and I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to be able to come out on top. Because Dread, I mean, I don't know, we've been talking about this guy for so long, but he's always been sort of this middle-of-the-pack jungler here in the LCK, and he really needs to try and break out in this 2021 season because he's still so young, he's still so talented, but hasn't necessarily found his foothold. And he spent a lot of time beside Spirit, who has so much veterancy in the role, and so he's bound to be able to pick up something, and I think that he's going to be developing even further throughout this year. So looking forward to seeing what he can do against Croco.
Yeah, certainly. Afrika really have absolutely a great understanding of how to control the early game, and I think we will see some more priority in this series on the Seraphine. For Lehens, Bang has paired it with multiple different champions so far. He's played the Kai'Sa, Samira, the Jhin as one of his big favorites so far as well. The Kai'Sa is the champion. He closed out that really, really long series we had just last week on Sunday. And he is a veteran. He's shown it so much so far in their first few matches. We'll see where the priority goes as we head into draft, though, for jungle champions. As again, I imagine that Taliyah is a must ban.
Oh yeah, I think Taliyah is going to be a must ban. I wonder whether they're going to ban the Seraphine. They might actually just take it away from Lehens on the Live Sandbox side. Live Sandbox will be starting off on blue, so they will have a bit more flexibility when it comes to that, as I think we're struggling just a little bit to get into the pick ban. Yeah, we got a bit of a disconnect issue. I think it was Red. You can see he's looking a little bit sheepish on your screen right there.
Yeah,
it's like, my bad, guys. I accidentally just closed it. So we're going to be getting in as soon as we can.
He saw them hover a ban he didn't like, and he just went right back to solo queue mentality. He's like, well, I'm dodging this one. Okay, looks like we're ready.
Got in there. It's like, no, sorry, remember, Dread, we're not in solo queue. And finally, here we go. So let's see where Live Sandbox do decide to go with their bans. As Afrika as well, probably just going to get rid of some pretty standard stuff being on.
Oh, the Seraphine ban right away, Atlas. There it goes. You love to see it though, and also banning the Rel early on. So showing a lot of respect to Lehens very early on. And again, when you look at the history of Afrika's roster, you think about Bang and you think about Lehens oftentimes as the players who historically were the most successful. Keen definitely in the conversation as well, but taking away two very strong support picks right away is also going to limit Bang's power level in the lane, which is where Afrika has been super strong and has led to a lot of early game advantages with the prio they get in bot.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think thinning the support pool, though, is kind of dangerous against the Afrika Freaks, because Lehens just plays everything. He's a mad scientist. Like, he was known for Elise support when he came into the LCK, and Singed, and whack stuff like that. And there are still, some higher tier supports available, but they've ignored the jungle outside of this Olaf ban, and I guess the Pantheon, and that Taliyah is looking to come through yet again. We'll see whether she continues on her warpath here in the LCK.
Yeah, I think this might have been a mistake. Croco's Taliyah has been fantastic so far, and we saw it in the Kespa Cup. He loves to play AP junglers. If he's not playing the Olaf, he goes straight towards AP. Usually the Nidalee and the Taliyah have been his big picks. They could take the Nidalee away now, of course, in this first rotation early on. They're gonna get their own jungler as well, but taking away Summit's Renekton over the Taliyah, I think is just... It's too much. It's too risky. Summit is a fantastic Renekton player, and he does favor it, and oftentimes that has been the go-to pick for Live Sandbox, along with the Alistar early on. They banned that away, and then they took away the Renekton. They took away both, interestingly. But I do think that Taliyah could definitely give Afrika Freaks a lot of problems in the early game.
I agree. You saw them hovering the Rumble. We've actually seen that banned against the Afrika Freaks a lot. I know that Fly does play it in the mid lane. They can flex it around, things like that, but an interesting pick, of course, is Samira going to be locked away, and there's the Orianna for Fate as well. So a stable mid lane, wanting to get that blind pick in, and Live Sandbox will see what they're going to be able to do as far as their top lane after the next bans do come in. Because now Summit's champion pool might be a little bit thinned. We'll see how it goes.
Certainly going to have, he's certainly going to have a little bit less of opportunity to play the champs he wants after that second ban phase, you'd have to think. And Fate picks up the Orianna. He's been one of the players we've kind of been zoomed in on quite a bit recently because of how safe he's been as a player. Not even just like he's a safe laner, he's actually pretty aggressive, but he's always a safe bet, it feels like, on these control mages, the Orion and the Syndra in particular. So grabbing that in this first or second phase, right, before the second ban phase, is a really nice option for Live Sandbox. And it feels like now they're going to have some flexibility as to countering what Afreeca is going to pick. And Victor being picked up for Fly very early on, a very common pairing with Nidalee.
Yep, and also one of Fly's more successful champions. Just, you know, in general, I put him in the list, in the conversation with, you know, players like Crown that did really like the more stationary of mid laners. But of course he runs pretty fast, so not exactly a huge deal there. Galli are going to be banned away here by the Afreeca Freaks, who are just focusing on Effort's champion pool. We're trying to get rid of as many supports as possible. Keen not going to be playing the Gragas, and we'll see where this final ban is going to go. Something like a Maokai could be taken away from Effort unless the Afreeca Freaks do want to take it for themselves, as Set is going to be their choice.
Set has been a really common support pick, but hasn't been played by Effort yet this season. So kind of an interesting one to take away there, is Effort usually goes towards the Leona if it's left available. He's actually 0-2 on it this season so far, but his team unfortunately is also struggling. So there's a little bit of pairing that goes into that with the stats as the Jace ban comes out here. And this is really interesting because, you know, we still have available the Camille. Jace removed here, Gragas is taken out, and if it's not taken here for the Freaks, and I don't think it really suits their composition all that well at the moment, I think Live Sandbox are going to be happy that one was left open. And taking the Galio and Set away, I think Live Sandbox are feeling like maybe this is going to be that Camille pick. Of course, Freaka going to grab it here, and I think you almost have to, but I don't know if it works as well with their comp as what they would like, especially not with a Victor pick.
I mean, I don't mind it. I think that Camille and Nidalee can do a lot of good things in the earliest stages of the game, and I think denying it from Live Sandbox was a really good idea. The problem is that now they've, you know, given away counterpick, theoretically, but if Live Sandbox decide to go with the Nah, it's something that, you know, Summit hasn't exactly had a lot of success on here this season, or even last season, actually. Played it a couple of times and it didn't really work, so Keen going to be rocking the Camille, and we'll see where Summit is going to go, as there's that Leona that you were talking about for Effort.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a disconnect here, unfortunately, between the Samira pick and doing something that's really slow in the top lane. They will take the Gnar, which can be great for later game team fights with the stuns. Ooh, shit.
Oh, the classic.
Of course, Lehens. You know, he's just not going to play it standard or safe. He's just going to do his own thing.
And this is Lehens all over as well. He absolutely loves Shen support, always has. It felt like he was playing like only Yuumi Shen for like an entire year back in the day. But this is the Leshens, and very excited to see him back on, you know, such a pick that he was just so good at. You know, he was really a mastery player, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do here. But it's not going to be necessarily the most powerful lane in the earlier stages, and Afreeca will need a little bit of time to ramp up, but they love having time, Wolf, as we learned.
And, you know, they don't have a great mid laner to roam with Camille. Like, Victor can, but it's not ideal. You know, he's very slow. But the Shen, post 6, gives you a lot of opportunities to be very aggressive towards the Gnar and try to snowball that top lane. And I feel like the Gnar pick is not terrible in this case, because you do have to play more tempo-based in this game. You can't just pick something like a Mordekaiser or an Ornn in the top lane to try to deal with that top pressure, play it slow, when you're running something like a Samira that needs to get an early advantage when she's paired up against someone like a Kai'Sa, who is going to scale better, very likely, towards the late game. So the Talia pick kind of set us down this path. They prioritize that super heavily. We're going to see if Krako can get value, start getting some of those early objectives. Otherwise, I think that if Afreeca can control the top lane, they've got a great chance to scale well into those later objectives, those later game team fights.
Yeah, I agree. And also they've got this beautiful, you know, 4-1 style of composition where if there is a collapse on the Camille, the Shen can be there with the Stand United. But let's see what happens as we get onto the Rift for game number 1. Live Sandbox versus the Afreeca Freaks. All right. Now is when we can, because it's the early game and stuff like that, we're just going to see some posturing and some 5-point defense system. Wolf, I want to talk to you about some of the openings in the LCK. Starting off with one of my favorites, which was the really wacky Spo TV one.
Oh, yeah.
In like, was it 2018? I think it was 2018.
I think it was 2018 spring, I want to say.
Yeah, what was your opinion on that one? Because it was like a very different take, you know? It was the one with all the cartoony stuff and like a very like yakety sax feel with the music. And
Certainly. I think a lot of people have different takes on it. It's probably the most controversial LCK opening of all time. I think it's a parody of the OGN openings for the LCK, where they're trying to poke fun at the seriousness of some of the OGN openings and how players kind of stand with big screens and backdrops and zoom-ins on the face and the names plates coming in and stuff like that. Smoke TV's previous opening they did before that was like heavily criticized by fans, so I think the idea was to do something a little bit more silly, but also kind of poke fun at openings in general. So I really like it. I think it's one of the most creative LCK openings we've ever had.
Yeah, I really liked it too, so I just wanted to get your opinion out there. For everyone to know, you can see a bit of a red start here. In fact, both of our junglers going to be starting on the bottom side of the map. We'll see whether they clash around that top scuttle in a little while. It will mean that this bottom lane is going to be largely an island for this early stage, and we'll see who that's going to work out for, as at the moment, you can see it's been working out for Kai'Sa almost every single time.
Yeah. So far, 6-3. And that's not always about the laning. It's about average game time, right, and how late we go with some of these games.
Yeah,
So,
true.
I think that, you know, if we do see Leo struggle on the Samir pick to get off, it's an amazing trade, of course, for Keen here.
Having a good time so far, by the looks of things. We'll see whether that's going to continue. Camille's had a great time in this matchup so far in the LCK, but things may change. Nara's been picking up some wins.
Yeah, he started off winless, and now he's 6-8. He's the most played top laner in LCK, believe it or not. It's actually pretty crazy to see how he started, I think, at like 0-4, and then started to make a bit of a comeback, as we saw some of the stronger teams come in and play him.
I think he was 0-6, actually. And then Khan picked him up, and people were like, oh, that's how you play him. You land all of your abilities and team fight well. Oh, great. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Khan was incredible on the pick. And we saw King in as well. He looked pretty impressive with some of the engages he had. So, certainly some room to set up some almost trap fights here where, you know, you try to bait the Camille into overextending. You have your jungler nearby. Dread's going to take the scuttle. But I think in this matchup, in this case, with the way the game is going to play out, I think a lot of the pressure is going to be on Lehens to make stuff happen and roam a lot and be aggressive. Because as you mentioned, the 4-1 is going to be real. As Scuttle stolen here.
Yeah. Yep, Lehen's putting on his River Shen shoes just for a little while. But is just going to scope out exactly where Croco is. It's going to be a 1-for-1 trade there on the Rift Scuttlers, although Dread, as Dread is wont to do, was already inside the enemy jungle stealing away a Gromp. So I like it. Dread sticking to his guns when it comes to his counter-jungling playstyle. And so far, everything's pretty quiet on the Rift, you know? As I say that, of course, Effort is going to engage, try and prove me wrong, but he's just going to back away.
Yeah, Effort has had some very questionable engages in the bot lane. He's playing a lot safer into the Shen right now, and we've seen Effort actually give up first blood a few times so far this season, just by trying to make an aggressive play, and Dread is unseen here.
Yeah. Okay, Taunt is going to come through. There's the spear. Oh no, not actually able to land it. I think that must have hit a minion because it wasn't empowered, and Effort's able to walk away. Oh dear, a little bit of a whoopsie there, but sometimes these pesky minions, they do just step in the wrong spot.
Yeah, we'll have to watch it again to see for sure, but I really like the way that engage was set up. You set the taunt for a really nice max range spear as best as you can do it, then you engage in. But the way the wave state was just enough damage to kill him if the spear actually had gotten empowered there and connected. We'll see exactly what happens when we get a replay of it later. Or don't, but, you know, we know what happened at the end of the day.
Yeah. It worked out for Live Sandbox, although that is the flash out from Effort. And so still successful gank there from Dread in his first outing, and also doesn't waste too much time as he's already up taking his Krugs now after a little bit of a reset. So no harm, no foul. See what he's going to pick up. He's got a bit of a Hextech cookie right now.
Yeah. See what he does build here, because, you know, we have seen most of the Lilies in LCK build very aggressively and not build towards the Moonstone Renewer. It's kind of a Lilia thing right now for AP junglers. Have seen it a few
yeah.
times with Croco, or excuse me, with Talia. Croco is playing now. And, yeah, we've even seen it sold sometimes, some of the components. I know, that's something he certainly can do. His fly is going to get collapsed on here. He's totally fine, though.
Yep, Dread once again is going to smack that minion with his spear. And Fate is going to be okay. Although, you know, Chaos Storm doing a fair bit of damage here as the Afrika Freaks are just going to clear up this minion wave. And Dread taxing it just a little bit.
Yeah, trades in the top lane here. Nice stun from Summit, actually. I'm going to be very happy with that.
In fact, we're just engaging absolutely everywhere here as Bang has to run away down to about 300 health. Voidseeker not going to find any joy as the W is just pressed by Leo to pop it. And no kills, but, you know, certainly some biffo happening here as Dread is just so good at hitting not players with his spears.
Yeah. His damage to monsters this game must be really high so far.
Oh, hell yeah.
There's a ward in the bush, or rather in the river here. It is in the bush here as well. So bush and going to be cleared out by Dread as they're trying to make a play around this Drake, setting up vision. Croco forcing out the flash.
Yeah, that's going to be good. Dread not going to have nearly as much power in the jungle now, as you can see, not even actually wanting to head over towards his blue buff. As Liv Sandbox coming alive here, despite not necessarily finding any victories when it comes to the gold. Croco will be able to take away this blue buff, which is fantastic for Fate's matchup there in the mid lane. There's Dread. Let's see whether he's going to be able to land this spear.
That's the idea. Really aggressive play from Liv Sandbox around the Drake here. Clearing some vision, stealing that blue away, and getting some small advantages early on around vision right now is super critical for their composition because they want to fight around that level 6 for Leo that he's just now locked in. If they can set up a Drake fight around the Samira, that is absolutely massive for them.
Yeah. Well, let's see whether they can actually get that one to work out so far. Still about 300 gold. Going to be the lead here for the Afrika Freaks, largely. Just CS gaps towards the top side of the map coming into play there, as Bang also has this minion wave to clean up, which will get them a bit of an advantage bottom lane as well. Got some steel caps coming through for Leo to start this one off. He's going to be building towards his shield bow pretty soon. And you've just got the serrated Dirk for Bang, trying to activate that Q as early as possible. Just pretty standard stuff. And
yeah, I mean,
I think it's going to work out for Afrika, man.
Yeah, I mean, look at the lane push here, though, in the bot lane. Just going to give the Drake over here to Croco. It's just the bot side of the jungle has completely belonged to him. He's going to grab the Cloud Drake, or Ocean Drake, excuse me, early on. And unfortunately, Dread, he wanted to trade that for a Herald. He got delayed momentarily here. And there are pings coming down. I don't think they're just going to give this up. It doesn't look like. Look at Effort. He's walking the long way around.
Over there.
Yeah.
Really making sure that he can get in here as quickly as possible. Fly doesn't have control of the mid lane either. And this is going to mean that Dread does have to vacate that Rift Herald pit. And this is just Liv Sandbox running Afrika around the map. Afrika haven't really been able to do anything. Despite the fact that their laning has been pretty good. So just a bit of a whoopsie there macro-wise, and I think maybe we're just seeing the power of the Talia and her ability to, you know, clear things out much faster and giving a tempo advantage over the Liv Sandbox.
Yeah, I mean, her passive movement around the map makes her very, very quick at getting into jungles, stealing camps away, controlling vision faster, and, you know, the lane was pushed super hard in bot against Bang and Lehens. And Bang was out of mana, so there was just no way for them to rotate. As you mentioned, Fate had control of the mid lane. So, I mean, you can't fault Dread for trying to trade 1-for-1 on the objectives, but he's just not able to do it.
Yeah, it's rough. Certainly rough for Dread, as we've got Croco moving up here towards the top side of the map as well. Summit with his Narbar at exactly where he wants it, but you can see Keen, his spidey senses have tingled. And we always know that he's one of our smarter players, generally doesn't get himself caught in gank situations like this. And once again, it is going to ring true. So, still no kills. It's just posturing, but the posturing has been won largely by Liv Sandbox, as they're going to be starting up this Rift Herald now. Lehens does have level 6, as Dread's going to come over from the side. So Stand United will be available. This is looking like it's going to be a 50-50. As Effort trying to get in there. Spear is going to connect. has now ripped Herald down extraordinarily low, but it's taken by Croco. In goes Lehens. That's a big taunt onto the Talia, who's now trying to throw the rocks around, gets a shove, but is going to go straight into the death chamber now. Keen with the Stand United shield and effort over the wall, actually, looking to try and get on top of Fly, but he's still going to be able to take him down. So 2 kills for the Afrika Freaks, but all of the objectives going over to Live Sandbox.
Yeah, Sandbox controlling objectives really well as Lehens is trying to get his way out here. Fate trying to set up for this. Nice little jump away.
Yep, Lehens definitely a bit of a ninja here behind enemy lines as he gets over the wall. Doesn't have flash, and now Leo's going to turn up as well. We'll see whether they just deliver him the kill, and Fate says, no, you're not even getting an assist. This is mine. Takes it away.
It's kind of a pretty bad situation there for the squad of Afrika Freaks. Because, yeah, they got... they were able to trade back some kills, but the objective went to Live Sandbox. I have to say, one of the question marks for me in that is, why wasn't Leo, if they were going to commit to the objective, why wasn't he going to rotate up? It's a long walk, and he decided to go for some extra farm instead. He's not even ahead in that. Meanwhile,
oh, dip. It's going to be fine. Continue.
I was just going to say, you know, he's got this big power spike with his ultimate, or he could fight extremely well before the Kaisa is scaled up, etc. He's going to fight again. I guess he's pinned down in lane, that's why he's not there. Because if he was here, I think this fight could have gone a lot differently, but he's actually pinned down by Bang, meanwhile, and does end up being objective, but losses here in the fight. And we see just, unfortunately for Lehens, the saddest death ever after this.
Yeah. Probably could have just headed towards the bottom lane and got himself shot by a turret and taken down, but I'm not sure when the damage actually came through on top of him, things like that. I don't think the eye was actually picked up.
Oh, they didn't get it?
Yeah,
Wow.
So I guess a little bit more successful there for the Afrika Freaks as the ensuing fight and all of the chaos meant that they weren't actually able to lock that one down. So, you know, there's a silver lining, but still a little bit of a off situation, one could say, for Live Sandbox not being able to actually lock that one down.
Yeah, I mean, right now Leo is farming just fine. Obviously staying even with Bang at the moment. But the longer the game goes, you know, those fights that he's looking for, I mean, the next big power spike for him after 6 is obviously when he gets his Immortal Shield Bow. That's going to be another fight they can maybe look for to keep that Drake snowball rolling. But yeah, unfortunately he wasn't able to take part in that last one. You'll see the Drake spawning in 10 seconds here. Again, Live Sandbox have full control over this. Vision control, their presence on the map. Lehens is trying to take some of that vision away, but he's finding himself in a precarious position.
Yep, we do have Fly freeing himself up here in the mid lane. That one is going to be equalized. His effort throws down the Solar Flare, looking for Lehens, gets through. But Lehens is able to stop a lot of that damage now as Fly's being turned on, has to flash to get over the wall as Croco's going down low. There's a shockwave, but only lands onto Dread. Keen actually able to avoid it, but now Leo's trying to pop off. Bang looking to try and escape as there's the Stand United to keep him alive. Fly limping away from the fight as Summit is down so low. Meganar is so close, gets himself a slight shield. No one's dead yet. This is just ridiculous. Only Croco falling as Leo finally gets that S rank back and is able to grab some kills. Bang also able to lock down his former teammate as a teleport back in here from Fly. Gets his full health bar as Summit could be in trouble. Fate just gets rid of Lehens though as Fly gets underneath the turret, locks down a kill. But this is so messy.
Yeah, very, very scrappy here. And it all starts with effort trying to engage very deep into the enemy backline, but he doesn't have control. Watch how he goes in here, because look at where Fly is standing. He actually knows that Fly is there and is still going in super deep, which means Fate gets zoned out as he tries to rotate in. And it looked like maybe the engage is perfect for Live Sandbox, but actually they take a ton of damage on their way out. Really nice flash over the wall. And you can see the chase continues here with Leo. Pops his ult and has to, of course, rebuild it, as you mentioned, but the step back here for Fly under turret means they can't chase any further. I felt like Afrika Freaks handled this fight really, really well, all things considered. Yeah, and again, there's the second S rank coming through. Leo spinning to win there on the top side of the map, but the engage there was a little bit worrying at the beginning with effort coming in. You see the teleport coming in now, of course, from Fly. Was able to just blow Summit up with all of that Victor damage.
Yeah, certainly able to get some work done towards the end of the fight. I think a lot of people's eyes are going to be on Dread, though. Dread hasn't exactly found the success that he's looking for. Fly gets over the right side of this wall here, but walks into the shove. There's the shockwave, but it doesn't actually matter. They're able to trade it 1-for-1 as Dread. Can he land the spear? He's not even going to go for it. A little bit.
This is a scrappy game. This is a scrappy game, Atlas. We are just seeing action non-stop. We're already 11 kills into the game at 16 minutes.
No one's actually getting advantages, Wolf. Like,
yeah.
It's just like kills for kills' sake. We're not exactly finding any like extra objectives. Not exactly able to turn this into positional advantages. It's just see hero, kill hero, which I appreciate. I was always a Moscow 5 fan, but still, it's not exactly what's going to win you a game in the long run. So, Afrika, we'll see whether they can get themselves in order when it comes to actually locking things down, and I think eyes are going to be on Dread for that one.
For sure. And I think that the last exchange, I mean, remember how it started was actually a very small vision skirmish over this Infernal Drake. And then it became a very extended fight, and as the dust settles, we're back to where we started, with Live Sandbox having that priority around the Drake right now. Dread's on the top side of the map once again, and I don't think he could actually kill Summit here, so if he can't make a play here, then this is all for nothing.
Well, here's the Stand United. We're trying to keep Keen alive as he is going to get rid of that turret aggro, and Dread, he is there. He's able to grab that kill, but now Fate has teleported in. This turret getting real mad as Keen down to about 100 health. Shockwave comes in, actually pins Fly against the wall and locks down Dread for that kill at the same time. Deathray not nearly enough damage, as at least Keen's able to escape with his life. But again, it's just a messy 1-for-1 and not really actually able to get anything else here on this map outside of maybe this Rift Scuttler, and Shellfish just ain't enough.
Yeah, and it was
the game.
And Alice, it was almost a 1-for-2. I mean, the teleport there for Fate was really nice, and he almost actually traded back 2 kills. Just a little bit slow on that, unfortunately, but it was still a great trying to collapse in with, right? This is what we talked about when you're trying to snowball a Camille lane. So you've got to use Shen to make that happen. Fate just goes ahead and tosses this one in blind. Didn't actually have a word in there, I don't think. I think that was,
there was a ward there. He might have put that down at exactly the same time, though, so still a really sick play. But unfortunately for Dread, like, he goes in, misses a spear, grabs the kill, and then walks around and then finds himself right in the middle of a shockwave. It's just really not his day right now.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. And I feel like for Afrika, they're having their hardest time in this game in the early game, which is where their strength has been so far in their last few series. So not a good look for how the rest of this game could potentially pan out. So,
no.
You know, Bang is playing the Kaisa, so we're looking for that late game as once again Croco engaging.
Yep. We'll see where that seismic shove is going to go as Fly gets himself back underneath the turret, but does need to deal with these minions as Lahen's going to turn up. Croco is definitely dead, but so is Fly. Shockwave, just for insurance at the end there, is now Summit underneath his turret, and Keen's going for a dive. Does manage to lock down the ultimate, but he's just going to die. That's going to be a double kill, going over to the Gnar, and I'm almost done, Wolf. Like, this game is a disaster.
It certainly is. But it feels like with every trade, Live Sandbox get more on the map. And they're almost able to get this top turret, as they are going to respect the fact that Bang is rotating up right now. Lahen's wants to taunt here. He's going for it.
Gonna find effort, gets the taunt down, as now in goes Bang to try and do the damage, but Lahen's, he's very close to falling. Thankfully, Bang grabs the cast minion aggro, but it's not over yet, as Leo's going to turn up. Bang, just gonna get popped. Reset comes through, but Lahen's, he's out of here. He's done. He wants to go back to the base, and maybe he wants to get out of this game.
Well, this is going to be another turret going down. The turret they just moments ago failed to get. They're able to turn around and take it because of that failed attempt to turn the fight around in the top lane, as more and more advantages going over the side of Live Sandbox here, which their comp needs to, you know, to survive the late game, is to get enough advantages to keep that tempo advantage up. But Fly here is trying to trade back. They're gonna, you know, turn on to Croc, would take him out. And it's just on the map, the objective trades here are working out so well for Live Sandbox. This is Summit getting collapsed on, and the lane swap. He's gone bot, and he's able to turn this into a double kill, which is absolutely not what you want. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, this is a tragedy.
It was just like the silliest dive. I mean, Summit did very well to clear out the minions and things like that, as Effort's going to follow Keen a very long way, as the Shield of Daybreak will come through, but Croco's out of range, and so Keen will survive. But there was just no reason to go for that dive. They set it up, they're like, there's no minions here, we're at like half health. let's go. Like, I just don't, yeah, that was never going to be a good idea, as the Rift Herald's going to come down and try and finish off this outer turret in the mid lane, and Liv Sandbox is starting to get this snowball rolling. Solar Flare sidestepped by Fly, who flashes out of the shockwave, but their health bar's very, very low. Still, they are going to survive. Summit not able to get quite on top of them, but it does mean that Shirley is going to get a double charge. Bang, he said he wants out, and he's just going to head towards the top lane and try and clear out some turrets where he can.
Yeah, he is actually joined now by Dread here. So the rotation is coming in to punish this. They should have enough time to get out. They are spotted, the rest of the Sandbox, by that ward there in the river. So they'll be fine to escape. And they've got all the information. And I mean, Atlas, I feel like this is this game is falling away from Afrika very, very quickly, and to come back in it, I think they really just need to win a great Drake team fight, and I don't know if that's going to happen here.
Well, I don't even know whether that's going to be the win condition, right? Because Kane in a side lane should be able to win any 1v1, right? He's getting close to his second item, but Liv Sandbox have taken every single Drake for free. Bang's still in the top lane. He's going to eliminate this minion wave as a priority just to deny as much money as possible. And speaking of money, it's only 2,000 gold.
Yeah.
But Liv Sandbox, they've got Soul Point now. And I just feel like they've been playing the map so much better, but it may not matter as we get further and further into this game, just with the fact that Camille is going to be so strong and Afrika do have so many late game tools.
Yeah, I agree.
They're not using them right now.
Exactly. I mean, it feels like the macro team should be the team that has the Shen and the Camille, not the team that is trying to deal with that. Should be Summit getting a double kill under turret while they're losing plates in the early game, as they're being out-rotated, lost all the objectives on the map so far. And unfortunately for Afrika, you know, I agree with you in that they should be playing for the map and not for the Drakes, but now that we're on Soul Point, I think they need to win this Drake fight, and I don't know if they've scaled up enough just yet to make that happen. They do have Collector for Bang now, and Dread has built, you know, pure damage so far. He's got his sidearm now, but or arm guard, excuse me. But
I like sidearm. That's better. That being said, he's a bit like a stormtrooper at the moment with this sidearm.
He certainly is. You know, none of the shots are connecting. And he's built very much damage, but he hasn't been able to parlay that into anything successful, unfortunately, in these fights and in these skirmishes, especially with the Night Harvester. So the Moonstone that we were talking about might have been a different and better option. It's less common on Italy right now in Korea, but certainly something to consider. With the hindsight bias, of course, with how this game has gone.
Yep, all memes aside when it comes to that particular build, if you guys have been paying attention to Twitter. That's okay. We do have Ravenous Hydra completed here for Keen. He's going to be looking towards his Sterix gauge after this, and he's going to be extraordinarily strong when that comes in. Collector done for Bang, so he's getting his items together as well, as Fly does have his Lich Bane, new and improved. And we're going to have a look at some total gold numbers. It's going to be a deficit for effort, but otherwise, Liv Sandbox just having some advantages across the board. And Fate, just being a silent achiever this game, being able to sit on 4-0 and 4 now. And he's landed a lot of these shockwaves, not necessarily, you know, that one on the top side that sort of just went into the ether after someone had died, but has been able to find a lot of success around the map so far on the Orianna.
Yeah, he's had some great teleports. He's been all over the map. He's been involved in so much that he's got his Magi stacks, you know, stacking up to 10 now. And I think that with how these next few fights go for Afrika, like now they're finally able to get some value out of Keen in this Camille side lane. So maybe they can try to rotate in for this Drake fight at 2 minutes. Try to get vision control. Right now, Keen is actually just taking Krugs after pushing this in, but I feel like trying to maybe operate around the fact that there's such a big amount of pressure in the bot lane and get control over the Drake vision. Dress up the fight on your terms. I mean, we're still a ways away from it. It's 2 minutes. It's not like it's going to happen in just a moment, but we are getting closer to that. So considering how to set up this fight with vision control, I think is best possible scenario here for Afrika.
Fate just being a turret over the wall there, but the ward is able to be taken down there by Lehens. He sacrificed his entire health bar, but still able to get that one there. Shirelia's Revelry has been completed here by the Shen, so he's going to be running pretty quick. As Afrika setting up some Baron vision by the looks of things. So we do have a minute and a half left on that Drake that you were talking about. If a free could go for like a Drake for Baron trade or something like that, I don't know.
I mean,
I'm just real scared.
I feel like the decision making so far in their first 2 games has not been the greatest in the late game, sadly, and this is the part of the game where we're fast approaching right now, where in this case they have a very big deficit. You know, they're 100% Herald, and first turret percentage is going down a little bit, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely not sitting at 100% anymore.
Yeah, this has not been a great game for them, sadly. It's still bounced back, but controlling vision over the Baron pit instead of over the, I think, more pivotal Drake, which is where that next fight I think is going to occur in 35 seconds here as it comes online, maybe not the best option. As, I mean, maybe they're scared there's a rotation to deal with the Camille side landing, so they don't want to try to fight that over vision just yet. They want to keep the fight and the pressure away from the Camille. So taking that Baron control vision on the opposite side of the map so that Keen's more free to push is the idea. But yeah, I'm not feeling great about their chances here, Atlas. On this next,
and you've got Fly sitting in the top lane. He's going to be able to knock down that turret. That's going to give them a bit of extra gold for the right now, but it's 5 seconds on this Drake, and they are completely out of position. You've got Camille on the bottom side of the map, and now everyone's... They're doing it. They're going to try and go for this Baron trade situation as we've got to teleport towards the top lane. This is a free Mountain Soul, and Sandbox, they've already taken it. Look at this. Bang's taking down a control ward. The Drake's dead, and they haven't been able to get on top of a Baron. They're just too slow.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be more decisive than this, Atlas. You're absolutely right. They're too slow. They don't even start it. They get the vision control away. You get a Gromp. So the good old 1 control ward and Gromp for Mountain Soul trade, I feel like is, you know, if we look that one up in the League of Legends Book of Trades, you know, we can find out that it's not a win for Afrika.
Yeah.
That's what it says right underneath.
Yeah, it's like they're dragon deniers. They're like, no, dragons aren't real. We can't.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen one of them? No. Because like they just haven't really been looking at this this Drake at all throughout this entire game, even when it was the Mountain Soul. Is now they're getting collapsed upon. Here's the Weaver's Wall. It's Fly gonna flash over it. Dread, he's gonna try and pounce his way through as the slow comes down with that Solar Flare, but not able to actually land the stun. And so Afrika will be able to escape, and Keen back in a side lane. And I think we're looking at a game where Keen's going to have to win this one by himself.
Yes, I think so. I mean, he's starting to get up there in terms of his CS lead versus Summit, who's been roaming with his team instead, and obviously can't deal with the side laning on his own very well. Will perhaps even die if he tries to, especially with Lehens being able to stand united with the Camille there. So he's kind of respected that, but that's what keeps Afrika even in gold, and in fact 100 gold ahead. But now that we're actually going to have the real Baron fight, instead of Afrika pretending like they were going to do it, the Mountain Soul being a thing and actually allowing them to set up for this fight pretty well is what's really scary, and Fate is massive at this moment in time. He's going to do a ton of damage. If he has a big Shockwave, that's, I mean, the fight just ends like that. Shockwave plus Samira coming in with her Inferno trigger. It is going to be a bad time.
Yeah, no, I agree. We got Sterix now completed, though, for Keen. He is huge. Probably looking for a GA to come through after this or something like that. But these are the 3 items that you're feeling real good about as a Camille. So anyone in a side lane is just going to lose that 1v1. Absolutely. He's currently 1,000 gold ahead as well. He was actually behind when we first checked in with the gold, but now has been able to get himself a sizable lead. And you can see that's all because of this CS that has been going his way. Runan's Hurricane now completed for Bang as well. He's putting some items together, as I believe Leo's probably looking for a Bloodthirster as his next choice, just to try and augment all of that extra lifesteal that he does have.
For sure.
This game has slowed right down, Wolf, and like, if Afrika win this, I'm just... If they think that they did well this game, I'm going to be really worried, because I don't think that that's exactly the learning that you should be taking away.
No, certainly not. I mean, look at the vision control here for Live Sandbox. Meanwhile, Keen is in the bot lane. He has teleport, but I feel like even if he teleported now, it's just too slow. They need to be more aggressive, and their comp doesn't have hard engage.
Well, Lehens, he's looking for some taunts. Effort going down pretty low here to the Baron as Dread is in position. We'll see whether he can land a smite. Jumps over, not able to actually get the smite down, but they are able to take the inhibitor on the bottom side of the map. But that is yet another neutral objective that Live Sandbox just walk in and take.
Yeah. I mean, right now, for Afrika, they're just trying to almost feign pressure on the Baron so that they can have Keen get value out of the silencing, and inhibitor turret goes down. That's a good start, but it's not an inhibitor. If it was an inhibitor, you'd feel like, okay, well, at least we have some extra pressure in the bot lane now. Maybe we could see Keen on the other side of the map and start to put that pressure around the Elder Drake fight and do the exact same thing just on the opposite side of the map, and then maybe you get 2 inhibitors, or you force more reaction to Keen side laning, so maybe you have a numbers advantage on that the upcoming Drake fight. But as it is now, this is going to be another lull state in the game where it's a Baron buff lull state, so all the work that Keen put in to get some value on the map is just going to be equalized, if not even better, for Live Sandbox in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, Keen does have his teleport available, so he can, as you can see, just head towards this top lane and shove this one out. So at least it's not going to be all 3 lanes under pressure. But this inner turret is not going to be the first of the structures falling down at this particular instant, as Dread does land a spear. Doesn't really do too much, as the Weaver's Wall is just going to block off any sort of defense from Afrika, and this bottom lane inhibitor turret is going to be taken. Inhibitor should be pretty comfortable as well. Here for Live Sandbox is Afrika trying to hold on to their mid lane. They don't want 2 inhibitors to be broken, as Keen once again is spending some time with an inhibitor turret, but the split push not necessarily working in favor of Afrika, as that's 2 inhibitors that have been taken off the map, and now Live Sandbox should be able to get down and stop Keen from pushing in any further. We're trying to stop the backs here on Afrika's side, but I don't
Baron backs though. Yeah, it's so easy to get out of here with these, and he does, I believe, grab that inhibitor, the top inhibitor, so that's 1 for 2, right? But again, it's trading down for Afrika. And with the bottom inhibitor turret open, there's certainly an argument to be made for him to do the same thing around the next objective, but there's a time limit, I feel, for how much value King can get out of this, and eventually, with all the lanes getting pushed and pressured by 2 inhibitors down, he won't be able to do this as freely anymore. He's getting away with it still at the moment.
Yeah, he definitely is, and he's parking himself here in this top lane as Bang. He's going to come and try and assist him. This positioning is very odd. There's 7 seconds on the Elder Drake, Bang, and you don't have teleport. Are we committing? Are we going for like Elder for Nexus? Is that the trade?
I think that's the idea.
Good trade.
That's a good trade, but I mean, the timing, I don't know if it's going to work out. Okay, Summit does get away.
Flash from Summit. Good flash from Summit as lands. He's got in here as well. The taunt comes down. Bang, looking to try and lock down the Mega Nars. That's a 3-man shockwave, and it is all over for the Afrika Freaks. Of course, they're going to let this one go down in an attempted dive, much like what they attempted earlier on in the day, and this is just donezo. Live Sandbox will be pushing through for the win, and this Afrika Freak squad are going to need to have a bit of a chat after this one to see what they can do to adjust, because I think we're going to have to go down a pretty long list.
Yeah, I think so too. Unfortunately, for Dread's build to, unfortunately, his Nidalee play on such high priority, Atlas to, you know, some of the lack of map rotations we saw on a comp that's supposed to rotate around the map, and if your win condition running the Shen and Camille is to try to trade Nexus for Elder Drake when they could just back and stop you. I mean, you know, people talk about 4D underwater chess, like next level strategy, next level plays. This was like 1D chess, like, this was definitely very one-dimensional, right? Oh, you guys are going to take the Elder Drake, we'll take the game. We'll have a 3rd person rotate in, the Shen teleports in, it's 3 pushing towards those Nexus turrets. Maybe if they just get shut down, maybe if they can't back, then we can block it, or we could block those recalls and then we win the game. But it was just so predictable. I mean, you and I saw it coming from a mile away. It's just very much, I feel like maybe that was what they decided was their one way back into the game. But I mean, maybe not getting the game to that current state, playing it better early to mid game, is the way to avoid that, and not trading crazy fights, 1-for-1s while losing turrets, while losing Drakes, and never controlling Drake vision ever. They were always on the wrong side of the map for that.
Yeah, they actually just ignored every neutral objective the entire game long. They had an attempt at some Baron vision, but then just decided that it wasn't really for them, I think, around sort of the later stage of the game. But I think, you know, the composition didn't necessarily lend itself to team fights, so you're probably not exactly going to be trying to force them or anything like that, but being able to contest, being able to get some poke in there as well. I mean, they did have a lot of poke options, you know, Void Seeker, Spears. I mean, Dread wasn't landing them, but in theory, those Spears could have been devastating if they'd actually been in position for some of these fights. So, and that would have been able to buy space for the Camille to sit in the side lane, right? But if you're just giving the Drake away, then it takes absolutely no time for them to take it. And that extra pressure that you're putting on isn't actually leveraged whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. I think it was just a bit of a whoopsie across the board when it came to, you know, all of the macro decisions for Afrika. So we're going to have a look at some of the damage done here. A lot of work done by Fly, but it was inconsequential at the end. And even Keen, we were focusing on him being sort of the way of saving the squad, but we're not exactly able to get on the board. And I think I want to draw your attention to all of the little icons on the left of the screen.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You look at the damage dealt and the gold differential in this game, it doesn't tell you a whole lot. But if you look at the objectives, from double heralds to all drakes taken, Elder Drake, Baron, and I mean, that was the story of this game, was Live Sandbox just playing the map better. And you get enough objectives, that becomes an insurmountable lead with certain compositions. And trying to play around trading those objectives for turrets and inhibitors didn't work out. They didn't have the tempo advantage that made that happen.
Yeah, and I mean, the last play, you might be looking at that saying it's the most silly. It was probably their only option.
Their only
at
option.
That point, but that does not excuse what happened in that game. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go to a short break. When we get back, we'll see whether Afrika can turn it all around. Don't go anywhere.
장난치고? 안에 핑크 안에 핑크 한번 볼게 한번 빼봐 버스로 올게 니달 놓고 니달 막 끝났다 야 밑에 집 끊어봐 나 돈이 한번 쓸게
이제 잡았어
확인하게
잡았고
오케이 이거 좀 많이 꼬였다
어떻게든 파밍은 됩니다. 그러니까 우리 하나 입장에서 때리다가 마나가 부족하거든요.
네. 이거 지금 미션 다 버리고
집에도 갔습니다. 와, 쌀킬! 저기 달려오고 있어요. 라스칼이 좀 단단하거든요. 라스칼이 시간 끌어주면 많이 단단해요. 그리고 본이부터 카이사 와요. 카이사 끄르르르르르르 그냥 녹았고요.
아니 뒤에서만 나타난 카이사가
원딜이 없는 상황. 카이사가 그냥 레넥톤 포지션이에요. 카이사가 레넥톤처럼
트리플킬 별로 안 돌아옵니다. 킬은 다 먹었지만 젠지 에이스.
네, 그냥 쓸어버리죠.
예, 툭하면 에이스입니다.
일단 근데 이게 나오는 과정에서
다시 T1
세트를 잡혔습니다. 어떻습니까?
사발했고
킹겐이 혼자 버텼습니다.
킹게하면 지인이 밀고 들어갈 수 있죠.
뒤쪽 플라이가
정면. 그런데
근데 솔카의 공격 때문에 바로 뒤에
오, 잘 도망가는데요? 킹게 또 그래도 어떻게든 좀 살리려고. 아니
킹겐! 야 킹겐!
이걸 도망가요. 저기서 배가 틀어지나요? 방금 그 각에서.
배를 내밀면서 허리를 튼 것 같은 느낌이 있었어요.
버스타고 치명 가면 치명. 그러니까 놔줄 수 없죠. 잡아서 엔딩부터 눕니다. 요네 대만나긴 했는데 마무리가 안 되거든요. 이렇게 되면 트리플킬인데 T1 펜타킬 구마유시 펜타킬. 근데 약간 늦어요. 약간 늦거든요. 페릴 리니지. 너무 잘 들어갔어요. 다음에 안쪽에서 툭툭 밀고 나가면 뒤에 나름 대박이 잡힐 것 같고요. 칸나 선수 상대가 장로의 힘이 있습니다. 네. 그래서 페릴은 잡았는데
그렇게 나로 최선을
뭐가 아직 없거든요. 장로 프레스 칸이
잡고 싸움을 잘하고 있습니다.
장로의 힘으로 프레스 빨리 라인 클리어 하면서 뒤에 온도. 근데 구마유시가 약간 들어와봐 좀 이런 느낌.
아프리카 프릭스의 첫 경기로 오늘
number
분석
2
배틀
here in
출발하겠습니다.
the
안녕하세요. 저는
LCK
윤수빈이고요. 옆에는 빗돌림 고릴라님 나와 계십니다. 안녕하세요.
Victory and Gorilla, and this season with the live translation, and we're kicking off with LSB versus Africa
최근
Freaks.
1승을 챙기면서 상승세를 보이고 있던
Africa was having a very good momentum after getting their first win of the split, but Live Sandbox was able to actually start off with the W here. In the first phase of the ban, Live Sandbox took away the favorite picks from Lihan's, and the answer from Lihan's was Shen. Lihan's probably is the only player who can always kind of execute this champion here in the LCK, and also he's also the mad scientist, and this time around his pocket pick was Shen. However, Live Sandbox was able to kind of answer to his choice really easily. If Africa had some of the ordinary support for the Red R4, actually, this could actually give more kind of option over to Kiin. So he had Camille, Shen, and also Kaisa that focused on the side lanes. However, we looked at the how the game went, and the map rotation was not really on point from the side of Africa Freaks. For example, they were not able to get any dragons, and also they were not able to get the Baron when they were trying to kind of sneak it away while Live Sandbox were at the Dragon Pit. Then let's take a look at the Dragon Soul timing in game number 1. The map rotation of both teams. Let's take a look at the map over here. Live Sandbox were really obvious that they were focusing on the 4th dragon, so they gained vision around the red side blue cap dragon and also somewhere near the Camille position, because they did not want her to pick up any kills when they were trying this dragon. Whereas Africa, the red side, they focused around the Baron. It was quite obvious for both teams, but there was this pesky ward in the Baron pit that Africa could not spot. So they were too late to find this, and also their original plan was to trade this Baron when I believe Sandbox was starting the dragon, but they were too late, so they could not start off the Baron, so they could not get an easy even trade, which is objective control. Because of that sneaky control word that was placed in the very early phase of the game, they were not able to get that Baron. But at the same time, if Africa rotated to the Baron earlier to that point, maybe they could have taken it away. Now let's take a look at the final highlight that we prepared. So Africa Freaks was going for the game-ending kind of side lane push attempt. So even when it was the elder timing, Kaisa also rotated to the top side, knowing that they have to commit for this. But Orianna with the Baron buff, she was able to recall really fast. And as a result, Africa's attempt went to Narnia maybe, and they were able to pick up 3 kills over here, and Orianna immediately teleported to the base of the opponent. Africa was really bold with that choice, but at the same time, because Live Sandbox were ahead in terms of every macro, they had this Baron buff, so Faith was really quick making that recall, knowing, kind of reading the plans from Africa Freaks that they will be coming for that game-ending try. We were always focusing on the experience on the side of Africa, but their macro was always weak here in the LCK. Live Sandbox also, they were not having their best team fights in week number 1, but I think they are coming back with redeemed performance. And the POG of game number 1 will be Fate on Orianna, the second POG of the split. That split game, and also keep stacking up the Magi stacks as well. He was having quite a bit of a priority during the laning phase, was picking up a lot of kills, and also in the end, the way he kind of rotated the map actually decided the result of this game. No, he wasn't really hesitating using his flash to lock that down. And also, even though Victor also did a lot of damage in this game, but the participation for the game as a whole was far behind Orianna. Orianna pick was also the pick that enabled him to exert a lot of pressure in all 3 lanes. And the last highlight once again shows that Fate was really sharp, knowing and reading the decision-making of the opponents. Africa definitely had no heads up that the Orianna will be coming for the backup. Fate with this unanimous POG votes is closing out game number 1 with a very solid victory. However, we had a bit of an intense game in game number 1, so let's take a look whether we're gonna have another intense one in game number 2.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to LCK 2021. We're going to do our best to forget that first game. It was not exactly the greatest of performances by the Africa Freaks. There are a lot of arguments that you can make about, you know, Africa all-inning on side lanes and not wanting to go into any team fights against what Live Sandbox have put together. However, you do need to, you know, at least stop them from taking everything on the map for free. And that certainly didn't really work out.
I liked how you put it. It felt like they just didn't believe in dragons, right? And
yeah.
I think that to a certain extent in some games where you have an early lead, especially with a comp like this, you can play like that and just forego objectives. But when you're also starting to fall behind on the map and you're desperately trying to catch up, you know, it doesn't work out. But let's focus on the future. Let's focus on forward here, Atlas, as we head into our second draft.
I do like that your cup is perpetually half full, my friend. I felt like, I felt like for a while there I was the only one whose cup was perpetually half full. So I'm psyched that we can both try and stay a little bit positive here. As once again, the Seraphine is going to be banned away from Lehens. Yes. Very good, and in fact, same bans, Wolf.
Exactly, same bans across the board. Taking away Krako's Olaf early. We'll see if the Africa Freaks decide to latch on to the early Talia pick if it's left open here. Not gonna happen. Smart play by Live Sandbox, not leaving that one open for blue side. 6-0 now, by the way. Just rising up. Just going deeper and deeper.
And also staying on the 100% pick ban so far as well. So good to see that, you know, they're figuring out that this champion's pretty damn good in the jungle. Though Nidalee is going to be banned away here by the Africa Freaks. I like it. You know, if you don't want to play it and you don't want to see somebody else play it, then just get rid of it. As Pantheon has to be the final ban here. And a few things, you know, sneaking through the draft.
I wonder if this is when we see something like a first pick Graves. You know, it's certainly something that Dread, I think, is very comfortable on. They will take the Samira instead, which has been the focus for Africa, and for most teams, right, is grabbing the 80s first. Samira blue side, you see the Kai'Sa coming on red side, very, very common. We're going to see a very similar game in that regard to what we saw last game, just with the sides swapped, but, you know, something like a Graves is one of the big priority jungles that's left open, and we could go down into some weirder jungle picks if that's not going to be picked up here.
I wouldn't mind Lilia either. We've seen that the Moonstone build starting to come into some prevalence, but there's the Graves that you were calling for with Olaf, Nidalee, and the Talia banned away. He certainly feels like the next step. As
and how brave do you think Dread is here? Does he want to try to go into something like a Kindred to try to shut this down, or is he going to go more towards the Lilia? And well, he answers it before you know, we can even have a discussion about it. And we talk about what it means, as we will see that very common pairing with the Rel and Samira together. Amazing here for Africa on blue side to pick both of those up here. But the, you know, the damage output for Lilia in a lot of these fights is going to ramp up the longer the fight goes. Can be very, very dangerous to deal with in late game as well with the big sleeps. But in the early game, probably going to have to play a little bit more passively, which, if you think about how the last game went for Dread, it's probably a good thing. you would think.
Yeah, I think the Lilia is a better choice because it's not the Nidalee, so I'm psyched about that. We'll see whether he goes for the Moonstone build. He may. We've seen that one starting to crop up on the Lilias more and more often. as Fate will once again lock away the Orianna, and we're looking at a little bit more of that teamfight style of composition being put together by Liv Sandbox. I'd like to see a magic damage top laner from Summit. We'll see where he actually decides to go with that one, though, as the Renekton stayed available throughout this draft phase, so you might just go for a Renekton, which will make me a bit sad. I don't really like Renekton Graves all that much, but that's okay. Certainly something that Summit will be pretty stable on.
I think you have to consider, if you're Liv Sandbox here, a Twisted Fate ban, because they might just otherwise go Twisted Fate Camille, which would be really strong with their composition right now, I feel, and something to look out for. Is that really, really powerful. It suits Afrika's really early game snowballing. They, besides the previous game that we just watched, overall, otherwise, if we just forget that ever happened, have been fantastic at in the first 2 series they've played. I think the Twisted Fate ban really limits a lot of what Camille could do. You could also alternatively just ban the Camille. Both options work. But they go towards the Renekton that you were talking about.
Yeah, I think banning the Renekton makes some sense here. It's something that would have fit into Afrika's comp very effectively, and I don't really like it for Liv Sandbox, so I don't mind the idea, as we're going to see Liv Sandbox and where they're going to go. This would be an old favorite in the Kai'Sa Rakan lane. Yeah. As Effort's thinking about it, he was always a very good Rakan player.
They also changed the portrait a little bit, so it's actually Rakan and not 2 champions. Zaya sneaking in. So...
that was very confusing, that first hover.
Yeah, you guys saw that last time. Well, it will be the Nautilus instead, so another strong champion pick historically for Effort.
Yep, this is going to be his answer into the Rel also. You can, interrupt the crash down with a well-timed hook as well, so you can deny a fair bit of that engage potential.
So,
we'll see.
Where do they go here? Do they go for something safe, something stable, or do they go with something explosive? I think the Twisted Fate option with the Camille available is strong, but you leave that counter pick for top open to Summit, who could play something like a Mordekaiser or a Horn or something like that. So not going to go all in down that path. I'm going to take the Gnar instead. This could be, Yone is available. I don't think he's amazing with Lilia, but have been seeing it with some of the AP junglers coming through. But otherwise here, in terms of the mid lane, Zoe is, the option that's left open.
Yep.
Works well for
slow
team fighting.
The really sleepy composition.
Yes.
As we've got the Lilting Lullaby and the Trouble Bubble as Akali being considered. I really like this. It does give you a lot of variance as far as your damage, and Akali doesn't lane too badly into the Gnar either. He's not going to give her as much of a hard time being able to, shroud around and throw Qs and things like that. So this is what they've decided to do to round out the Liv Sandbox roster, and I'm about it, It's going to mean that team fights are going to be, somewhat difficult. Not exactly a lot of frontline here for Liv Sandbox, but otherwise, it's a fun idea.
It's going to be a very explosive game. Very, very aggressive rotations around the map we're going to have to see from Krako, and that's what he's, known for so far in his LCK debut and Kespa Cup. Liv Sandbox are definitely playing this composition, or playing a composition that's hard mode, right, in terms of how difficult it is to execute, whereas Afrika Freak is kind of your bread and butter with the Samira Rel bot lane. Zoe, strong objective control if you get that early lead. Lilia going to be great for setting up late game team fights. The sleeps you were talking about. Gnar, if he doesn't get totally dominated by this Akali in the top lane, is going to have a good time later on. For setting up big stuns for team fights. So I like what Afrika has built. They played it safe. They didn't go all in on the Camille Twisted Fate that I was, kind of maybe feeling like they were going to fish for there. And I think this is all going to come down to the Akali execution on the side of Liv Sandbox. It's our first Akali in the LCK. It's been left open a few times, but this time we actually see it locked in as the top lane.
Yeah, and we are going to hop out of Champion Select just for a little bit here, guys. I think there was a slight mess up. As you may have seen, there was a Nautilus being played by Leo, which is not necessarily what we want, as Effort is generally the support for Liv Sandbox. So we are just going to, I think, run back through this draft as quickly as we possibly can. You can scope out the PCs in the background there, not quite getting back into any lobbies just yet. So the picks will all be the same, but we're just going to try and get back in again. And you can see, I believe the players are just going to run through this draft as quickly as they can.
Yep. I wish I got to have this when somebody wants to swap with me in solo queue and we agree on it, and then they don't accept, and then like I go into the game and I don't have the right summoner spells, and it's a disaster. I don't want to play that champion that the guy asked me to pick for him. I wish in my solo queue games I could just redo it like we do here in the LCK when there's a problem.
Yep, definitely a better idea. I like that one. But I think it might have been just a dodge because there might have been one of those weird issues where you can't actually swap correctly and stuff like that. We've heard of that happening before, but I'm just speculating. We don't actually know exactly what happened. Yeah, why didn't they could have just stood up and switched computers. You know, imagine that.
Yeah,
maybe settings would have been completely wrong, but we could have gotten to the game just that little bit faster.
Yeah, come on, guys. Come on, Live Sandbox.
I apologize.
You guys could unplug each other's keyboards and mice and like rotate them over real fast.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
Maybe even switch chairs. You just roll. Those chairs have wheels on them. Look at that. You see that right there? Those all equipped with wheels. Could have rotated even the chairs over.
And you know, like Aftershock Kaiser, surely that's going to be fine, right? Right, guys?
Yeah.
You have heaps of CC. It'll be totally. It's not going to be a useless keystone at all.
No.
Definitely not. It looked like their bins were on fire. But just more humidifiers, guys. Don't worry. It's not smoke. It's just we're trying to make sure that we get some moisture into the air, and so that all of our players are, you know, in the best conditions possible.
Yeah, very much very dry season in Korea right now, so that will actually be a life changer, a game changer for these players. Running those in the team house so that you don't have chapped lips and dry throat and fingers are getting really dry. And
yeah, actually, I need to get one. You got one just recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I just did. I just got one. It's in my room right now. It's running. It's actually made my life so much better. This is my first time ever having one in my whole life, so the LCK inspired me to get one.
You guys as well, you know, if it's feeling a little bit dry in your house, you know, my throat's actually feeling a little bit dry today as well, but that's because I don't have a humidifier.
There you go.
Just completely ruined. As we're going to have a look at these team comps one last time. Afrika with a little bit more focus on team fight with this particular loadout, whereas on the Live Sandbox side, certainly a lot more, you know, laning focus and being able to skirmish. We'll see how Summit's going to do on the Akali as well, because this is going to take a lot more finesse if they are going to go for the 5v5s. But I do like, you know, the 2v2 on the top side. I think if Graves really gets an advantage here, and I think Croco has had run of the jungle so far, so playing through him, being able to get advantages, I think is a really smart idea here for Live Sandbox.
Indeed. We're going to jump into this game right now. I had to do it because you finished your right as we got into it.
We basically just talk over this this whole getting onto the Rift thing every time anyway, so I think it's totally fine now.
Yeah.
I think we're okay.
No fan cheers for a little bit longer, so it's not we're missing out on that.
Oh wow, it's actually going to be really hard to get back into the habit of like being quiet so that we can hear the fan cheers, because we just haven't done it for like 12 months.
Yeah, it's been a while, huh?
Oh man, that's sad. Hopefully we can get back into the studio. You know, everyone can get their immunizations and we can all be okay once again and get fans back. We can get back to LoL Park and things can be better, but not quite yet. And we're just going to do the best with what we have.
Yep.
As is the Afrika Freaks. They're going to forget Game 1 ever happened, Wolf, and they're going to get straight into Game 2. And it's a very different style of composition. Definitely for Keen, you know, far more focused on team fighting, and that might be just what Afrika needs.
So Akali pick, I think, is really game-defining, because she's such a difficult champion to execute at the highest level, and we know she's very strong. We know she works insanely well with Riftmaker. Items that have come out recently have made her very, very powerful. And, you know, obviously seen a lot in mid lane, but top lane is another great option for her. She's struggled when she's been played in other regions because she's been often locked down by CC. And on the side of Afrika, they have a decent amount of that. So she's going to have to play very carefully, look for, you know, engage, disengage, re-engage type of play. Kind of stay out of the fight during its scariest moments.
Yep. And I think, you know, Summit certainly has a lot of mechanical skills, so we'll see whether he's going to be able to get this one done as we're checking out Effort's pretty ludicrous win rate on this Nautilus. This is every single match in the LCK and sitting on a 66% win rate. Not bad at all. Keen just barely avoiding turret range there, it felt like, but is going to be able to get that hop off on top of Summit and try and get him away from this minion wave as best he can, as the early levels will be tough for the Akali.
Yeah. We did just see the stats for effort. I want to say it was about a 67% win rate across LCK for this Nautilus pick. So he does roam up here very aggressively. I have to say, coming into LCK and coming into casting League of Legends, one of the things I really appreciate compared to some of the other games I've cast in the past, other MOBAs, even FPS games that I've cast, sometimes you have a pick that you're really good at, but you never get to play it because it's just too out of the meta. It feels like in League of Legends, that rule is not as hard, fast. There are champions that are less popular that are still very viable, so you get to pick champions that you've been good at years prior when they were very meta, and they still end up being relevant later on. That's something I've really enjoyed about League of Legends so far, is just a lot of diversity. Even in a meta where a lot of people are saying this is stale, same 20 champions in LCK, I'm so bored, but from my experience, it's been pretty great.
Yeah. No, it hasn't been too bad. And look, it's early days as well. So when people are figuring out the meta, there's generally not as much of the diversity. So it's once it gets a little bit solved that a few of these curveballs do need to be thrown in. So I think we just need to be a little bit patient, and then we're going to be okay. But I know what you mean. It does make learning the game definitely quite difficult. If you're a huge boomer like myself, you just have all of that knowledge of like all of these champions that have been played over the last 10 years in the back of your brain, but certainly a tough one if you haven't been paying very close attention for all of this time. As Summit, he's definitely doing a better job now, as you can see. Looking for a little bit of a recall is keen, so the Akali really starting to come online already.
Yeah, this is a really good sign for Summit. Gonna get the teleport away for free, and this is not one of those exchanges where a teleport's forced, but someone has to also go back, or is sitting at half health. He's actually at full health, totally fine. So just getting a teleport away there is a really nice advantage for him coming up into this next objective fight, which probably feels a ways away right now because there's no priority around the Drake for either squad at the moment to try to lock that one down, especially because Bang and Lehens have no lane prio at the moment, and Croco gonna struggle to try to soul that or try to set up for that at the moment. So it is going to be a little bit of a lull state, how the lanes are pushed at the moment, but Summit will actually do a cheater recall and buy that little teleport advantage he had.
Yeah, Croco as well, actually. I have a feeling that Dread assumes that Croco took the Rift Scholar, but now he's moving up there. It's just a very late scuttle take, as Dread's going to see it, and he's like, oh, is it my birthday? And he should be able to take this one down as well. So the Lily are having a pretty good time here in the jungle thus far, as Croco is going to spot the chickens. And Dread is going to come through as well and just steals that away with an auto attack. Okay, can't land spears, but he can auto steal these chickens, which is working out very, very nicely. Dread actually looking a lot more comfortable here on the Lilia already.
Certainly, and playing it pretty safe too. You know, assumed that Sculler was taken, so trying to challenge for it, and then goes in and finds out, like you mentioned, that it's actually free. Goes over there, a little bit of hold that thought. Effort.
Yeah, there's the shockwave fly, in a lot of trouble here. Does have flash, but no opportunity to use it, and that is going to be Effort's Nautilus picking up the first blood.
Yeah, I mean, not who you wanted it to be on. If you're Fate, you're like, oh, seriously, man? But hey, you secure a kill. It was a perfect setup there. And Keen is going to, of course, hide and smoke for a minute, but re-engage as he hits 6.
Yeah, ulti comes out, actually, as Summit trying to get on top of him. Not going to be in range for any of the execution of the second half, but still just so much pressure onto Keen, who has to flash in the 1v1. It's not exactly how he was expecting this Na versus Akali matchup to go, as, yeah, Summit is already putting the screws in.
Okay, this is really scary for Dread to be here right now. He doesn't have any vision of Croco at the moment. The lane is pushed, so...
A little bit like ships in the night at that point in time, is Fate not going to get paddle starred, and he's also not going to quite find his dissonance either, so no one taking very much damage there in the mid lane. Okay, Bang getting very excited as Effort. Decent CC as Lehens just going to flash on forward. They're looking for Leo, who goes down to about 100 health as Dread is going to turn up in the nick of time. And no one is actually going to fall down. However, not a lot of summoner spells left over on the bottom side of the map. Effort actually getting a little bit more of an advantage there, but outside of it, everyone just pressing every button they had.
Yeah, they're going to rotate in here to try to save this blue buff, it looks like, but I don't think that's going to happen. Just going to go to Fly. So nice little advantage there. It's all seen by that ward in the brush. We're not going to be able to commit to the Drake, unfortunately, with no kills there and with Leo walking back to lane very quickly. Summoner spell trade across the board here means that you don't want to fight. No one really wants to commit in and fight further, but I'll watch this pick from Effort again. Max range dredge line, and Fly is just taken out.
Yeah,
stealing the kill
that he could do. Yeah, I think, you know, when we're at this level of play, it's just better to make sure that the kill happens, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's totally fine. Plus, you know, Effort's a beast. On his Nautilus, get him fed, I reckon. As Dread just continuing to clear things out here in the jungle, who's farming a little bit faster than Croco, but nothing really to write home about, as Keen is going to make Shelly a little bit upset. And Dread's going to spot Croco here. Bowling Ball is going to connect. Now he's going to make him sleepy. Fly gets the rotation over as Fate has a command protect. Shockwave comes out yet again as Croco goes down extraordinarily low. The Ignite ticking down, but it's not going to be enough to kill him as Summit goes through the Shuriken backflip, but with 4 people there, he's probably not going to want to engage. As we've got a disengage happening once again. Live Sandbox with a slight advantage as the dust settles. But otherwise, it's just a lot of excitement. And Effort, yeah, just going to get paddle started a little bit, but otherwise he's okay.
Pretty tanky. Fang grabbing a turret plate, so small advantage gained throughout that little tussle around the Rift Herald. As Dread does have vision control here. Just going to start this once again. It's not an insanely fast clear for the Lilia, but we'll start to burn him down. Keen has lane priority, so finally making an effort to really take something on the map for the first time in this series and actually hard committing to it.
Yeah, finally we're going to get ourselves in here as Croco might be able to just quick draw over this wall and try and contest, but it's not looking like it. Summit going to make his way in though, and Leo does have the killer instinct available. He can be there in the nick of time. And Afrika, they seem to know this as they're backing away. Effort looking for the fight now as Shockwave comes in and Summit. Massive damage into the backline. The Lilia does not last more than a couple of seconds. And now Summit's zoning everyone away. They'll also grab themselves the Rift Herald. Live Sandbox, a much better early game so far.
Much better re-engage, or much better fight there for them as they re-engage. And it's all about Summit, right? As soon as everybody's health bars start to get very, very low, Summit is going to be able to do massive damage and actually clean up the whole fight. So Afrika Freaks have to respect that, and as you mentioned, the Killer Instinct being able to allow them to re-engage from a huge distance from Leo, they back away, but they oddly kind of recommit into this choke point. Very indecisive here for Afrika Freaks, as a lot of respect has to be shown to Summit, and the Herald will go down. So, you know, I was praising them for being aggressive and hard committing to that Herald, but sadly, it does get taken away from them, and now Live Sandbox is going to grab this Drake for free as well.
Yeah, Live Sandbox are snowballing this one extraordinarily quickly. They definitely wanted to. I think that, you know, their lanes were set up very, very nicely. But collateral damage now being used from Croco just to get himself out of there, as we've got the Mountain Drake just being taken. And the next one will be an Infernal. We didn't get a Cloud Soul last game, but we could get one this time. As Summit just... Yeah, he's having a great time in this lane at this point, Wolf, and it's getting more and more dangerous for Afrika to continue contesting on any level. The last fight may have just been the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly an even more disastrous situation for Afrika than the last game. The last game they were trading even and losing Drakes, but now they're not trading even. They're losing these exchanges, they're losing these team fights and losing objectives. The Herald will go down. And, you know, you and I talked about it right before the show. I was like, look at these Afrika stats. These are actually insane. And you were like, well, remember who they played against. And, you know, I still wanted to hype it up. I wanted to talk about how they have had such a great control over the early game. But in these 2 games of League of Legends, the opposite has, in fact, been so true that it hurts us to say it.
It certainly does. And I actually thought that Afrika were going to have, you know, another decent showing here because it's against Live Sandbox. They have also looked like they've been struggling. It's why I think that these haven't necessarily been the most high tier of the video games here in the LCK thus far. But I think this game, Live Sandbox have looked pretty damn good. So certainly a good experience for them, even if it is not feeling so great for the Afrika fans out there.
Yeah. The route back into this game for Afrika Freaks is, it's long, it's filled with roadblocks. It is You know, the speed limit is pretty low. You know, trying to catch up on this one. You're just, You're running into a lot of issues now with this comp where it gets harder and harder because Samira doesn't get, you know, she didn't get the team fight power spike that first team fight with her that you can sometimes look for on a Drake. Didn't get that one. And, you know, she's going to get her shield bow pretty soon, but that next fight is so much more difficult than it would have been if the game was either even or if they had that slight tempo advantage. Even Effort is doing extremely well. He's got a stopwatch even now for extra survivability, so he can play extremely aggressively. Try to set up for strong engages in these team fights. And when Fate just does, he puts in his shockwave and does a ton of damage in that initial part of the fight, that's when someone's like, okay, it's time for me to go in and clean up. And Afrika either have to run away so they lose the objective, or they have to fight a losing battle. And their team fight comp is just too slow, I think, at this stage. There's no burst. And that's what's worrying when you have such a strong engage with Effort here.
And also, I think a lot of that test was something that you set up earlier on, and it was how Summit was going to play out these team fights as well. And he's done such a good job of zoning just with his shroud positioning and what he's been able to do in this early game that it might actually be enough to get them out of the woods when it comes to Afrika's comp being online and being able to actually find some of this wombo that they do have access to when everyone gets a bit sleepy and you've got Nas happening into the wall and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, Live Sandbox have certainly been able to navigate this earlier stage very effectively, and now they're looking to try and collapse on this bottom outer turret as well, right as these plates are falling down. But Dread in a pretty good position to try and defend, and it looks like none of these plates are going to be eaten here as we tick over to 14 minutes.
Fate in such a good position too, every time in these fights. Like if Fate wasn't there, Croco gets slept and he dies, right? And then they're able to maybe make something happen here as this Drake is spawning, maybe collect some more vision control, but Fate is always where he needs to be. He has had such great control of these lanes in both games. He's up now 25 CS. And he just comes over and makes sure that Croco's you know, aggressive positioning there for a potential dive is actually safe, in fact. So, yeah, Fate is just doing a great job on this Orianna.
Yeah, it's 2 games in a row, actually, where he's performed very, very well. We might be getting back-to-back Fate POGs. In this game, as you can see, Live Sandbox with a lot more money from these plates. In fact, only 1 measly plate going over to Afrika this game really does tell the story of how this early game has turned out. As Fly doing his best to clear out these minions, making sure that he keeps his turret alive for as long as possible. As Fate is just unrelenting.
Yeah,
and he can be, right? They've just got so much vision.
Yeah, he's 100% kill participation in this game, 4 assists. He was definitely highest kill participation last game. I'd love to see his stats actually from this series because he's roaming so well. He's used his teleports so perfectly. Another one going to be online here in just a second. They are crushing this lane so hard. He eats a turret shot. He's going to get the very first turret here. And as this Drake spawns, like, where are Afrika on the map? They're pushing heavily towards Summit here. They're thinking that's going to be the weak side trade, but they've lost a turret. Can they get this kill and maybe turn it into their own turret pick? That's the big question here. Is Summit is very alone at the moment.
Yeah, but now he's just looking to try and back away, and they know this. And this is Live Sandbox once again saying, we believe in dragons. And they should be able to head over there. You can see the vision. I mean, there's just absolutely none on this map. And yes, Summit will be giving up this this top outer turret, but they're going to lose their red buff. They're going to give Leo, I think, solo gold when this turret does fall down as well. And so the trade is definitely not going to work out in favor of the Afrika Freaks. And I actually really like that Croco first decides to rid the jungle of everything before heading over to this Drake, because they have so much vision that they can take it for free regardless at whichever time that they want. So Shirley's going to be taken, but as it's the less high value Drake, because you don't get, Herald, because you don't get plates for it, and you're just more than happy to move towards this potential Ocean Soul for Live Sandbox.
Yeah, and right now, with how the lanes are, I mean, maybe you can use this in mid to try to get something, but it feels so risky at this point, because in these mid fights with Fate having such good control of the lane, and his ultimate setting up a lot of these really strong engages that we're going to see, using the Rift Herald here seems more difficult than it would be normally. And, you know, if we're going to talk about my favorite Zoe fact, that turret's at full health, not going to be unlocking that extra range and control over the map anytime soon. Sleep committed here, and unfortunately just not going to connect, or just not able to follow up anything after that.
Yeah, gets himself far enough away, not actually having to use any of his summoners or anything like that. Fate actually going with the teleport instead of the cleanse as well is, I like it.
Yeah.
Certainly shows that he's bold. and not thinking that any of these sleeps that are pretty prevalent with this Afrika composition are going to be doing anything.
Look at these pings too, Atlas, all over the map. They're like, oh, they've got vision everywhere in our jungle, because not only did Croco take the jungle, but he deep warded it super hard as well. So they had everything they did in the jungle there took time, and obviously this rotation here to the turret, which is where they're going to force the Rift Herald to get value, is just so slow. It just comes over very, very late. Summit's here, and there's just more jungle steals happening across the map for Croco. Like, he's starting to get massively ahead in these camps because he's just always there. Like, he's 30 up right now.
Yeah, and Dread actually hasn't been able to take any of his jungle, I think. I think it's both sides, this rotation for Croco. And we were talking about the stats earlier. I mean, that was our featured matchup, was Dread versus Croco, and Dread's the one that wants to get into the jungle and counter jungle most of the time with his playstyle. But this time, Croco's demonstrating that he can do it too. His Gale Force is online, building towards that Collector as quickly as he can. That Rift Maker that you were talking about coming through from Summit, that's already been completed also, and this Akali's slowly but surely going to just be able to get through and take down whichever squishy member he wants to. And, you know, with Lilia, Zoe, and Samira, I mean, there are a lot of options here for Summit to have a field day at trying to get rid of these priority targets.
Keen.
Okay, this is danger. Yep, Keen, he's real dead. Croco's going to steal that one away with the collateral damage. I love it. Make sure you spread the assists around as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, going you're saying that was definitely the I'm in danger Simpsons meme there, for sure.
Oh dear.
Sad
hard
times.
to be an Afrika fan today though, Wolf.
It really
hasn't really been the series that they were looking for in any way, and it feels like there are a few emotions that may have been skewed after that game number one, based on what we're seeing here.
I don't want to draw too many conclusions yet, but you know, what's the one big change between this Afrika series and Live Sandbox? Or you know, this Afrika series against Live Sandbox versus the previous ones. We're gonna watch Keen being in danger and then subsequently dead. I think the big change is the Seraphine ban, and it means that lane control is not going early to Bang and Lehens, so that puts a lot more pressure on Dread, who's not able to make anything happen so far in these two games. Fly is getting outclassed by Fate. So, and now they have a matchup where Summit is dominating top lane, so they're not winning any lanes with this draft. And it feels like, you know, maybe some of the success we had in the early game was just off of that insanely strong bot duo that Lehens had when he had the Seraphine, because they could be oppressive, they could be aggressive, get that bot prio at least. But with the bans coming through from Live Sandbox, we just haven't seen that dominance there. They're losing other lanes. Fate is dominating mid so hard that, I mean, again, I don't want to say that Lehens' Seraphine is the only reason why they did successful before, but it's definitely something that they're missing here, and that draft adaptation makes Live Sandbox so much more comfortable in this best of three.
Yeah, it really has been Live Sandbox with just priority absolutely everywhere with what they've put together. Croco as well now is gatekeeping Afrika out of their own chicken camp, which is terrifying. Now he's going to have to move, as you can see a bit of a collapse here from Afrika, but not a lot of the buttons are actually landing as effort. Not going to get slept. Dread's going to hold on to that Little Sing Lullaby in anticipation for a potential Drake fight, as we've got Live Sandbox looking for a bit of a reset, but I actually really like this, delaying these backs as much as they can. And I think it might mean that, yeah, they're going to be out of time a little bit getting back to this this dragon, but I still think that Live Sandbox are in a good position to take it.
Yeah, teleport coming through. They are going to fight this 100%. Afrika, the timing doesn't work out for them actually with these backs to start the Drake early, so all they could do is get a positional advantage here and try to clear up some of the vision.
Yeah, as Effort's just going to flash his way in. Croco as well, a lot of damage potential as Fate. He's going to be able to lock down that kill, and now Live Sandbox are looking for it. The crash down from Lehens, but unfortunately, it's a little bit too little too late. Bang, the Samira's doing some work, but it's just not enough. That should be the ace. As Live Sandbox, they say, well, I mean, we'll take both the Dragon and the Baron.
Yep. Pretty nice cleanup here. All started by Effort with the flash over the wall. He started this game off with a very, very impressive kill in mid lane, and in this position here, flash over the wall, instantly getting a grab onto Keen. Keen is blown up. And then how do you fight this at this point? The trigger here for Bang gets his S rank is used defensively. Effort's the only one in range. He's got his stopwatch from earlier, so he's totally fine. And Bang and Effort, you know, they didn't dominate the lane per se. They didn't, or sorry, Leo and Effort, excuse me. They didn't dominate the lane per se. They didn't, you know, get a massive lead in CS. But in this fight, and in many of these fights, the Nautilus pick has actually been the fight-defining champion.
I mean, Effort's just a god, man. I mean, that fight was just so beautifully started. Exactly the right timing. I had the rest of his team in position and ready to go. And now, like, as this Baron falls down, we've got Soul Point for Liv Sandbox. Once again, they're the, you know, the dragon tamers throughout this this series, but it's a 10,000 gold lead. Like, this game is basically over, and Liv Sandbox have played it out so beautifully. Like, Summit in that team fight, I mean, he executed Dread, and I didn't even notice. Dread was just there for 1 second and then dead the next, as now Afrika are setting themselves up a blast cone attack onto Effort potentially, but Effort actually wants the fight. As you can see, the depth charge comes in. Now Leo, he's off to the side. This Kai'Sa still with Killer Instinct available. Croco trying to get out, and he actually is going to be able to. Effort probably not going to be so lucky as Summit finds the Rel in the backline. Fate trying to keep himself alive, as well as this Blast Cone eventually going to get used as Dread will fall down. Fly just evaporates as Leo spots him for half a second and then sinks the teeth in. Now Summit is hunting for Bang and for Keen. As Croco gets himself into this brush, it is warded, but Bang and Keen, they cannot get anywhere near this Liv Sandbox team, and Summit is still chasing them. They should be able to break open the base right here.
Yeah, this is certainly going to be the inhibitor going down, as right now Bang and Keen are trying to decide if they want to... It's a fight or flight moment here. I think the flight is the correct option at this stage, even with the fruit giving them a little bit of health back there. Grabbing that early inhibitor now, our Liv Sandbox, so further control over the map. And the composition for Afrika Freaks, you know, they don't have a way to set up for these fights perfectly. Look at how this all goes up. They're trying to party bush this one. Effort comes in, he takes a ton of damage. He's slept early as well, so he can't come in for extra healing. Croco actually is able to escape, flash over the wall, then goes through, so he actually survives. Effort, look at all the tanking he does in this fight, as meanwhile, Lehens gets taken out on the north side by Summit. And the team composition for Afrika Freaks, it doesn't have strong engage, and when it gets split apart like this, it just gets torn up by the Akali. And, I mean, incredible plays from Croco there, coming back in, doing his collateral damage from the side, surviving there for so long. He and Effort healed so much for the rest of the team, and Summit was just zooming around the team fight, doing massive, massive damage. He's up 404 right now, which seems to be a common thing when I'm casting with you.
Yeah, we get a lot of 404s. Actually, it's a bit weird.
2 of them in this game right now.
But also, I mean, Effort's he's just been playing so well. That depth charge got so much value. Fate holding onto his shockwave until exactly the opportune time. Manages to get exactly the targets that he was looking for. And yeah, Afrika are just getting ran around at this stage. 12,000 gold is the lead. This inhibitor is not long for the world on the bottom side, and the mid lane has already been dealt with while we were looking at that replay, as Lehens looking for another aggressive engage, but Magnet Storm's finding no value, and Effort just decides that he's going to go in and kill everyone. Double kill for Croco already, and they are way too far behind. I respect Afrika going for it, but it was unfortunately never going to happen, and Liv Sandbox 18-1, an absolute shellacking here at 26 minutes. Will be taking down the Nexus, and this might be an early night, Wolf.
Could be. It could be Atlas. I think the big takeaway here is the Afrika hopefuls might be feeling a little bit less hopeful after this series. Afrika had a few good games they played. They had dominant early games in the lead up to this series, but in this series they looked frankly lost. Without Lehens being able to play the Seraphine, they couldn't get lane prio in any lane across both games. The first game, not understanding how to macro around dragon control, just constantly rotating to the wrong side of the map. And whew, I mean, if you're an Afrika fan right now, time to buckle up and hope for better games coming forward, because it looked like things might be turning around for them, but that changed very, very quickly today in our first match.
Yeah, it was not the look that you were hopeful for, but we can focus on the other side, and I think Liv Sandbox had a really slow start in week 1. They didn't exactly look like the team with the potential that we may have thought they had, but this Liv Sandbox is looking real good, and we're getting glimpses of that Croco that we saw in the Casper Cup, who was just dominating. Like his play on a mechanical level was so good, but he hasn't been able to quite find that opportunity so far in the LCK until today. So Liv Sandbox, maybe this is a team that could be a dark horse.
sure.
in the LCK.
They're definitely one of my dark horses. I've been saying it for a while. Effort, fantastic game on the Nautilus as well. Getting that early kill to Fate, who's been so good even without a free kill in the early game, right? I mean, he only got the assist. In this case, Effort actually stole the kill, as we mentioned, but giving him a little bit of extra lead in the mid lane. It's a bad matchup versus the Akali in the top lane. And Akali just kind of sneaked into the draft. We talked about all the other things that could have happened. We were talking about Camille, maybe some Twisted Fate, then it ended up being the Nara pick they went for. And Akali just ended up being the perfect pick for the composition they were running, controlling that top lane, having great cleanup in team fights with the strong initiation they had with Effort on the Nautilus. So very, very clean game from Live Sandbox. And I am hopeful for this team's future. I really, really am.
Yeah, and we need to shout out Fate as well. I think that Effort deserves the pog for this game, but I think Fate had, once again, just another fantastic Orianna game, so he's coming into his own as well. I think a lot of you guys, if you're watching during 2020, like listening to Yamato talk about Fate, like this guy is really, really good, but we hadn't necessarily seen it in week one, right? Like this whole team seems to have finally come alive, and it's really great to see, but yeah, maybe it is based on matchup, and the Afrika Freaks certainly a lot of adjustment needing to be done. As we have a look at some of these highlights, it's all just going to be Effort starting a whole bunch of fights and Live Sandbox to win, guys. That's the spoiler.
Yeah, that is certainly how this all starts off here. This is going to be that kill on fly in the mid lane, and start things off, and then this is going to be the really awesome turnaround in the choke point here, where Afrika Freaks were very indecisive about whether they were going to commit to controlling the Herald or not, and someone just pushes through. They can't continue to fight. And yeah, I mean, the control over vision on objectives is one issue, but I think it's a jungle problem more than anything else. Not to solo in on Dread too much, but every time we had these moments where it looked like he could have done something, he could have actually been aggressive, he could have gone for some vertical jungle, or actually been more aggressive in terms of stealing some camps. He always played passively, he always played fearfully. And the opposite was true of Croco. Every time they had advantage, he stole camps, he deep warded, he gave so much additional vision to his team, and when you fall behind like that 2 games in a row, I mean, the series is going to look lopsided as a result, because it almost felt like it was a 5v4 oftentimes with how low impact Dread was, especially in that first game on the Nidalee. So, yeah, we had some question marks about him going into this series, and unfortunately, I don't think we have answers just yet.
No, let's have a listen in to a very happy Live Sandbox as they push for the win.
Yelling Samira being caught there on the edge. The team is just cut to pieces. They're shot calling to kill Samira, but it's the only one even left to kill at that stage.
And they just sound real calm, Wolf.
You love to see it, you know? There's almost a disbelief as to how easy this is.
I don't think you need too much translation for that one to explain that particular attitude. This is a team that maybe didn't expect things to be quite this easy. As they managed to pick up the 2-0. Fate getting a lot of hugs from the rest of his team.
Deserved.
Check out some of the stats and look, I mean, he doubled the damage that Fly was able to put out. Fly also having not exactly the greatest of times on his Zoe. That sometimes real good, but this time was definitely not.
Well, the Zoe is also going to have a problem when the whole map belongs to Live Sandbox. You're trying to clear deep wards on your side of the jungle. You never get any pressure on the mid turret. Like, Zoe's just really going to struggle to find even shots because she doesn't have vision as to where to shoot. I think the big telling damage number in this chart too is unfortunately Dread on the Lilia. Not even able to do any damage on the side because the comp that they were up against just didn't allow him to do any damage in a longer fight. The fights were not long because it was hard engaged from Effort. Akali's forcing everybody back, cleaning up. You mentioned that Summit killed him, just straight up deleted him in one of those fights. So how are you going to play Lilia? She's too squishy into this composition.
Well, I mean, not with very much ease, as you saw from this game, but I think that, you know, things started to fall apart very early. I think Live Sandbox rode a snowball very, very effectively this game. I think their composition was definitely setting out to do that, but the execution was just beautiful. And now, let's throw it over to G-Sun to get some analyst desk translation.
네, 팬팬 지난했던
Thank you very
1세트와
much,
달리 리브
guys.
샌드박스가
Unlike the game
2세트는
number one we saw
압도했습니다.
in game
뱀픽에서는
earlier,
아칼리가
well,
열렸고
this
처음으로
time around, Leaf
등장했어요.
Sandbox was
네.
able
근데
to dominate
아칼리와 관련된
the game,
거를
and we
저희가
saw
크게
the
예측하지
first
못한
Akali
대로
game
게임이
here in the LCK
리브
Spring
샌드박스는
Split.
속공의 아프리카가
However,
좀
regardless of
승체로
the
무너진 것 같고,
Akali pick, I
사실
think Sandbox was really
고래와 저와
smart
그런 얘기를
with
했을
their
때 경기
macro,
끝나고 어느 팀 조합이 좋냐,
having a very
전체
fast
득포는
tempo game
양팀 다
here.
담원 기아일 거고 이런 얘기를 했을 때도 각 조합의 장점이
So
있기
looking at the
때문에
draft
어느 쪽이 좋다
itself,
의견이 저희가 반반
well, we
갈렸는데
couldn't really
이
tell
게임적으로 확실한
which team
득점을
had
리브
the
샌드박스가
edge over the
잘했기
other,
때문에 이긴 경기가
but
아닌가
I
이런
think
좀
execution
평가를
level was definitely higher from the side of Leaf Sandbox. Africa Freaks had a very early lock-in for the bottom duo. So Rel came in really fast, and also they banned away Maokai as well. However, they were not able to gain any points in their early game, playing around the bottom lane. And Lilia versus Graves matchup was actually in favor of Lilia to get ahead in terms of the level, but they were not able to actually connect that to something else. And also they had a very failed attempt for the Herald as well. So let's take a look at this Herald team fight. Africa did not have enough information to start this off. The only reason for Africa for trying this was maybe flash down for Akali, but Nar also didn't have his ult, didn't have his TP, didn't have his rage, so there was no reason for them to go this deep for this Herald. Rel was level 5, whereas Nautilus was holding his ultimate, so it was really obvious that they were going to lose this team fight if they contest, but Africa was the one to start off this Herald. So this was a very easy team fight for Leaf Sandbox to pick up a clean victory. Africa looked like they were seduced to try this off. And Rel was not in a perfect position to start off a team fight because, well, this champion requires a lot of casting time, so the opponents are actually easy to react to it. And after that fight, Leaf Sandbox was able to keep their lead, and let's take a look at this kind of the most decisive team fight that we saw in this game. Nar was not definitely having his best game, but he got just collapsed on right after. And also, it's really impressive to see that he actually, Leo, Effort actually ulted on Lilia, not just Nar himself. So we had more engagement coming in for the side of red side. And, well, it is true that Effort was staying away from the vision for a very long time, but we can also kind of point out that Effort was really sharp going in with his flash. And we can really tell that they're really confident for having this team fight open right before the Drake as well. And the POG on the side of Leaf Sandbox will be Effort, having outstanding performance on this Nautilus as usual. 83.3 kill participation and 100% kill participation before 15-minute mark of the game. This is a champion that has a lot of counters in terms of the laning phase, but you know, Len came in as a blind pick, so he was not having a hard time during the laning phase. And post laning phase, you know, we saw how much engagement he made and how much contribution he made as a support player. The Effort was really smart, kind of opting in his kind of options that he had in his hands. You know, some of the hard CCs and chain CCs he can make by himself. Once he had this confidence that this is the angle for actually Leaf Sandbox to win, he just ran straight in and engaged. Africa was looking for a counter engage right here, but Leaf Sandbox was able to take it with a stylish fashion, and also they were already about 10k gold ahead at that point of the game.
경기력 보여줬고 그런 부분 때문에
Effort still showcasing his best performance here in the Leave Sandbox in the very early stage of the spring split.
인터뷰 만나봐야겠죠?
And let's hear from the players.
페이트 선수와 에포트 선수와 인터뷰 나눠보겠습니다. 안녕하세요.
축하합니다.
Congratulations.
승리 축하드립니다.
감사합니다.
Thank you.
네, 드디어 리브 샌드박스가 첫 승을 신고했습니다.
Finally,
소감을
Leave
들어봐야
Sandbox
텐데요.
got your
페이트
first
선수 먼저
win.
소감
How are
말씀해
you
주시죠.
feeling, Fate?
저희가 이전에 했던 경기가 좀
The
유리했던
previous
경기가 많았는데
games, actually, we were having a huge lead, but we were not able to close out those ones.
되게 아쉬운
So
점이
that's
많았었거든요.
basically how we dropped
오늘은
those games.
좀
So
깔끔하게
yeah, a lot of
이겼다고
things were left to be
생각해서
desired,
좋은
but I
것
think
같아요.
this time around we got a very clean victory, so I'm pretty much content.
에포트 선수도 승리 소감 들어볼게요.
And effort, how do you feel?
네, 이제 드디어 LCK 시즌 첫
Finally,
승을
this
거두게
is the
되어
first
거두게
win
되어서 너무 기쁩니다 지금.
of the spring split. I'm so
네.
glad.
그 승리의 기쁨을 사실 고릴라가 계속 보면서
And Gorilla was
응원도
watching
하고
this
걱정도
game,
많이 하고
supporting
있었거든요.
you,
저는 어떤
and also he
느낌이었냐면
looked a little bit
스킬샷
concerned.
하나하나 계속
Like he
저희가
was
이야기를
so
하면서 상호야 좀 더 잘해주면 이렇게
the
응원
level of
했어요.
sympathy he had for
이렇게
the
보고 만나니까 좀 어떨 것
support
같은데
player, especially
느낌이
you.
어떠세요?
Effort was on point.
가끔씩 이제 찾아와서 응원도
Yeah, he
해주시고
sometimes
하셔가지고
like come say hi
항상 너무
and
감사하게
supports
생각하고 있어요.
me, so I'm always feeling super grateful.
가깝거든요. 그래서 부담이 될까 봐 좀 피하고
Yeah, we are
다니는데
actually super
원래 또
close. I
한번
try not to
놀러
put too much pressure, but yeah, sometimes I try to go just say hi and make him feel better.
올라온 느낌입니다. 어떤 피드백이 있었던 건지 에포트
The Live
선수
Sandbox
한마디
came
해주시죠.
back with better macro and team fight. What kind of feedback did you guys
저희가
have
뭐
after
이제
finishing game
원래
week
이제
number
기본은
1?
라인전이잖아요. 이제
The
라인전이
basics
돼야 이제
of
운영이
Game
되는
League of
건데,
Legends is laning phase.
라인전부터 차근차근
So
다듬으면서
we went back to the square one. We
운영적으로는
worked on our laning phase.
하나가 돼서 좀 다
And we
같은
wanted to move
생각을
as
가져야
one
된다,
when
약간
we
이런
are
느낌으로
kind of working around the map and
그래서
making
그런지
some
오늘
macro
선수들의
decisions.
합이 굉장히 빛났습니다. 페이트 선수는 오늘 만장일치로
Fate,
플레이를
you had
차지했는데요.
unanimous POG in game
본인의
number
폼이 오르는
1.
게 확실히 느껴지시나요?
Do you also feel that your performance is on the best level right now?
그냥 좀 비슷하다고 생각은
I
하는데
think it's similar,
또 대회 때
but
집중하려고 좀
I try
신경
harder
쓰는 게
to
있어가지고 좀
focus,
결과가
stay
좀
focused
잘 나온
on
것
during the
같아요.
competitive
대회 때
games.
집중하라고 신경 쓰는 뭐 어떤 뭐가 있는 건가요? 포인트가 아니면 그냥
Is there any
거기에서
specific
많은 걸
points that you kind of focus on
하는 건가요?
during the games?
뭐 최대한 좀 연습할 때랑
네.
마음가짐은 좀 비슷하게 하려고
I have a
노력은
similar
하는데
mindset
뭐 일단 제가
as the
실수할
Scream games.
수 있는 요소나
But,
아니면 다른
you know, I
팀원이
try
실수하는
to
요소 같은 것도
Check whether there's
뭔가
something that I can
신경
make
쓰려 하면서
mistakes,
하는
and
것
also
같아요.
I also try to pay attention to the plays coming out from my teammates.
제가 이제 에포트 선수한테 질문을 드리고 싶은 건데 사실 1,
This question
2경기에
is over to effort.
리엔즈 선수의 세라핀이나 렐
In
같은 걸
both
밴을 했고
Game
또
1
이제
and 2, you
많은
guys were kind of
서포터들이
target
나왔잖아요.
banning a lot of
그러니까 이렇게
support
밴이 좀
cards
몰리게
away
되면
from
사실
Lian.
플레이하는 입장으로서도 뭔가
And if it's
부담감이
one
느껴졌을 수도
specific
있는데
role
그런 부분은
kind of
어떻게
takes all the bans,
해결을 하셨는지
you know, you
아니면
might
그런 부담을
could have also
느꼈는지
felt
좀
a lot of pressure, right?
그 밴 자체는 이제 상대 팀의 핵심이라고 생각해서
Because
세라핀과
we thought
렐
that
쪽을 좀
Seraphine
저격밴을
and Rel
네,
are the
플레이하는데 딱히
core
그렇게
part
부담감까지는
for
없었던
the
것 같아요.
opponents,
어차피
so I didn't really feel too much pressure about it.
자신이 있어서.
I was also feeling super confident with those
경기로
cards
저희가
getting
시작을
banned out.
했는데 사실 상대가 이제 카밀 중심의 사이드 조합을
In game number 1, Africa took a side lane comp, Camille together with Shen, and also they had Kai'Sa who can also join the fight. But Leave Sandbox was able to kind of play the map better. So we could see how much kind of focused you guys were in game number 1. So what kind of communication went back and forth, dealing with Camille in the side lanes.
놓친 부분도 있었던 것 같긴 한데
I think we did miss out 1 or 2 points
카밀을 이용해서 좀
from time to time, but we knew that they had to play around Camille and make points. So we tried to play the map around, like countering the Camille. And at the end of the game number 1, you actually made the perfect timing reset to stop their kind of Nexus attack. Or so were you aware of that?
처음에 이제 카밀이 억제기를
first,
밀고 나서
After Camille
제
took
썸미
down
선수
the
보고
inhibitor,
이제 라인 치고 나갈 때
well, I told
카밀
Summit
이제 궁극기 연계를 당하면 좀 많이
to like be
위험하냐
aware
이런
of
걸
the
물어봤는데
Camille's ultimate
진짜 위험하다
engage, and
생각을
he
하는 것
answered it. I
같아서
think
그
I'm in a
미드라인을
very
제가
risky position.
지우는 동안에
So while I
카이사가 안
was
보였어가지고 어느 정도
clearing
예상은
out the
했었던 것
wave
같아요.
on the mid lane, Kai'Sa was missing, so I had a little bit hint of that attempt.
이게 제가 그 통계를 봤는데
And I saw the statistics, and your most played champion is Nautilus, and you are 22 to 10 currently here in the LCK. But I think Nautilus has a lot of counter picks. So why do you how do you rate this champion in the current meta, and what do you think about the matchup in the laning phase? We had a lot of support cards getting banned out, so Nautilus in this specific situation is really good. But when there are a lot of support picks available, this is not the ideal pick, but together with Kaisa, I think it's quite viable. I have a question over to Fate. Game number 1 was pretty close, but in game number 2 you guys were dominating the Rift. What kind of feedback did you guys have after game number 1? In game 1, you know, we made some mistakes in terms of macros and some detailed factors. So we made some simple but specific kind of feedbacks about it. At what point in game number 2 did you guys feel confident to close out the game? I personally, in my perspective, when Effort made the mid lane roam and made a kill over to Orianna, I felt we got a huge lead. So I was able to get these kind of situation where I can exert my pressure. Very satisfying answer for Effort as well. And in this upcoming Friday, you'll be facing up against DRX. What's your goal for that series? We were going through a losing streak, but now that we got the first win, it is our time to get the ball rolling, stacking up the winning streak. Fate, any message over to your fans? Well, somehow, I think we were looking very powerless in the games that we lost, so I know the fans were a little bit let down by our performance. So we are working on it, and we will try our best to make sure to come back with stronger performance. This will be the end of the interview with Fate and Effort from Leap Sandbox. I'm going to pass it back to our casters. Thank you!
For the absolutely glorious translation. And yeah, big congratulations to Live Sandbox. A little bit disappointing for Afrika fans, but you have to look at the positives. As you can see, Live Sandbox now move themselves to equal 8th alongside Afrika.
Yeah, you know, there's been a lot of discussion in the Korean community as well as in the global community. Is we know who the top 3 teams are, right? And we're going to find out a little bit more about who might be holding that number 1 spot at the end of the week. But in the middle of the pack, right, anywhere from 4 to 10, it feels like, is very, very much still in flux. So we'll have to see how the rest of this week shakes up here. Nongshim, obviously, if they're able to win this match that we're about to jump to, will jump up quite significantly as well. But still very volatile down there at the bottom of the standings.
Yeah, absolutely. And DRX as well with an opportunity to try and crack open towards the top as well. A team that a lot of people didn't have very many expectations for, me included. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do. But ladies and gentlemen, we will have a bit of a break before we get into that series. We'll see you then.